Perfecto. Okay, we'll get started. Guys, I'd like to welcome everyone back to the One Step at a Time podcast with your host, the Ocean Flight 111, heading straight to full potential with Sarah Delays. And guys, I'm very, very grateful to have a guest today. My guest today is an exceptionally creative talent. He's a podcast producer, music producer, videographer, film director, businessman, amongst many other roles. He's released films such as The Primrose, which is now available on Amazon Prime, and has even produced an podcast episode for the iconic Larry King. In the music world, he's worked with artists such as Chris Webby, Whit Laurie, 44 Phantom, and of course Mike. Many people know him for his close collaboration with Mike over the past 12 years, in which he's played a key role in shooting, directing music videos, as well as working on the Only Steve's platform, as well as helping Mike build the brand that you know today, not just as a creative partner, but also as a trusted friend and contributor. There is no ceiling to his creativity and no stopping his undeniable work ethic. Above everything, he's a grounded, kind guy who loves to be a service to others and give back. Guys, I'd like to welcome Jon Kilmer to the podcast.
Whoa, did you write that bio yourself?
I did indeed.
Can I steal that for my website or my Instagram or something?
Yeah, man, do your thing, bro.
That was beautiful. You made me sound way better than I actually am. That was incredible. Thank you.
You're very welcome, man. But yeah, damn, so many. I was like, when I was writing it, I was like, dude, should I put in more? Because there's just so many different aspects to your life.
I'm all over the place. Yeah, that's ADHD at its finest.
Love it, man. Love it. I don't think I let you know, but I'm from Ireland. Mm-hmm. So that you're asking like the time difference and whatnot. I'm from a place called Sligo in Ireland, but I'm currently living in Dublin. I do believe you're in Nashville at the moment, I think.
I am, yeah. I'm right here in Nashville.
Yeah, man, shout out Nashville. Haven't been yet, but I know the Strip. Is it the Strip, or is there a famous strip or something in Nashville?
Broadway is the name of the main street.
Yeah.
Broadway, yeah.
Yeah, that's sick. Yeah. I'm gonna hit that. I'm sure there's an Irish pub somewhere on that.
Yeah, I know. Hey, listen, I've been to Dublin. I know you guys like to drink. I think this is the close second here in Nashville. I mean, people get pretty rowdy over here.
Dope, man. Dope.
Yeah.
I just wanna. Well, first of all, I had the honor of meeting you there I think it's 3 weeks ago at the Pier 17 gig. Mm-hmm. It was the second one. It was the Friday, the 23rd, I do believe.
Yeah.
We were telling you that you got to get back to Europe, man.
I know, it's been 10 years. We haven't been there since 2014, and we didn't even go to Ireland, which is criminal.
Okay,
yeah.
Damn.
Criminal.
Okay,
we went to London, but that's as far over as we went.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, we don't mind English people.
No.
We don't love English people. We don't mind them anywhere. There's a bit of history there, but that's a conversation for another time.
You just put up with them.
Anyhow, I kind of just want to get into your journey a little bit. Mm-hmm. From like obviously the come up to all your work with Mike to kind of the present day and kind of the person you are, because I think a lot of people could learn a lot from your story. But I want to bring you back, Jon. I want to bring you back to the early day. Hopefully not the heyday when you're a wee baby in Boston. It is Boston. I don't hear the Boston accent.
No,
the Boston accent.
The accent went away. But speaking of accents, can you say baby one more time? I mean, that was incredible.
Oh yeah, I said. Oh wee Bobby.
Bobby. That made my whole day. That's just gonna cycle through my head all day.
Love that. So, young kid growing up in Boston. You're 9. So what? You're 9 when you hit piano, 14 guitar. Should I say 13 when you got your camera? So it seemed like your childhood was just creativity galore. What's them early memories like of playing a little piano, playing guitar, getting that first camera?
How do you know those ages?
Bruh. People don't be doing the research. I'd be out here, I'm like, bro, it's a podcast. I'm trying to go straight to the top. I'm trying to do that research.
Yeah. I forgot about those ages. You're just hitting me with them. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Holy shit. Yeah, I guess I'm just one of those lucky guys that kind of knew what he wanted to do at a young age, you know. And when you're like 11, 12, 13 years old, you're not thinking about a career. You're thinking about, what do I like to do with my friends, and what do I like to do that's fun, you know, just in my free time. So I fell into creativity. And for starters, piano was the first creative thing I did, and I fucking hated it. I had this Asian lady, Mrs. Hoy, who gave me lessons, and she just yelled at me on every wrong note that I played. My parents made me do it. I fucking hated it, but thank fucking God for those lessons, because that's how I learned music. That's how I learned how to read music. That's how I learned I mean, like, you know, early stages of theory and just like basic music theory and just how to, read music and the name of the notes and all that. So that was kind of like the intro to it, and it was harsh because I hated the lessons. I dreaded it. Like when the doorbell rang and my piano teacher was at the door, I was like, oh fuck, this next hour is just gonna suck. It's just gonna
Here we go again.
It's just gonna suck balls. It's gonna be awful. But for whatever reason, that was my gateway to it. And then when I kind of got into guitar when I was 13 or 14 years old, I kind of had like that step up where I was like, I already knew music. I kind of already understood it. It was really fast to learn guitar and understand it a little quicker. So on the music side of things, that's how it happened. On the camera side of things, I mean, I'm fucking ancient. I was around like during the Flintstones. So the early camera days where like the cameras were
Shout out Fred, though. Shout out Fred.
Shout out Fred and Barney. My BFFs. The cameras when I was a kid, like 13 years old, they had the little cassette tapes that you put in, nothing digital back then. And I for whatever reason, I don't even know why I had that camera or why it was at my house at that age. If it was my parents or my brothers, I don't remember, or if I had asked for it, but I had this camera when I was 13, and my friends and I would just, in our free time to have fun, we would just go around and we'd, the show Jackass was popular at the time, so we would do stuff like jumping off our roofs and like rolling down our driveways in trash cans and doing stunts, lighting shit on fire. That's literally how it all started, was just me doing fun stuff with my friends. And fast forward to today, what I actually made a career of doing is just filming stuff and having fun with my friends. So I'm just like literally beyond lucky to have followed exactly what I wanted to do and made a career out of it. And it took a different shape at the end. I ended up going right into the music industry and filming concerts and a bunch of content surrounding a musician. But at the end of the day, I was just filming stuff with my friends, and that's how it all started in the beginning.
I love that, man. I love that too, that you're just immersed in creativity. Like even from day one, like when I sang your intro there and I was listing all the different things you did, that didn't happen like yesterday. You just didn't pick up all these things yesterday. There was like early seeds of nearly everything, even from an early age. So when you were like doing them videos, it was funny you mentioned about you had your music teacher. I had a nun, so it was like couldn't get more Irish than this. But a nun used to come in. I can't remember her name off the top of the dome. I hope she's still alive. And she used to come in and she used to do singing lessons with us. And we'd sing. Now, geez, my singing is still a bit shit to this day. But look, hey. But she would come in and we do hymns. The first time I ever heard the Beatles was because of her. And we used to dread her coming in. But when I think of music now, my first memories of music are singing with her. So I definitely relate to like that idea of having something you didn't want to do, but it impacting you down the road.
You just got thrown right into it. Yeah. And honestly, like another thing that I should bring up, which is a good point, is when I was younger, when I got into high school, I was like, my parents made me go to this private high school that was like, you had to wear like dress code and like it was kind of buttoned up, and I hated it. And I was very much like I was a little punk, honestly. Like I was always getting into trouble, and I didn't like anyone in my school really. And but the good part about that school is that they offered music classes and video classes, which is like pretty rare especially back then, with video not being digital back then. And it was like the equipment wasn't very cheap. It was very uncommon for a high school to have a video department. So I owe it really all to that school that again, another thing my parents made me do that I hated. I feel like I should just owe it all to my parents. I think they actually know what they were talking about back then when I was just telling them to fuck off. But everything.
Jeez,
I literally owe.
I would like to see the reception to that.
No, I owe it. I literally owe it all to them, because I mean they put me into these things that if you were to ask me back then if I wanted to do it, I'd say no. I don't want to go to this school. I don't want to do these piano lessons. But thank God I did those things, and I went to that school, and I fell into these video classes that I just absolutely loved, and I fell into these music classes that I could play guitar and chill out with other people that, like-minded people, other creative people that like to play music and stuff like that. So if it wasn't for like all of those stars aligning and having like amazing parents and people who really supported me and being in that type of environment, I don't know if I'd go into that career later down the line. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, man. Shout out the parents, man. Shout out the parents.
I
I know your mother there was a picture of your mother with the highs. I think at one time someone put up of a mic, or you put up a picture of her holding the vinyl, but she'd only just heard it or something. Like, but even though it had been out months or something.
Yeah, my mom's a classic OG fan. She likes the old Mike Stud song, so she had just heard the highs about a year ago, about two years after it came out. She gave a full review on my Instagram. Yeah,
Love it.
she's got the thick Boston accent. She's got the real Boston accent.
Do you still do you still have it? Like, if you want, can it come out?
Oh,
Like, if you're around your friends.
Oh yeah, it can come, especially if I'm back in Boston. Forget about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely love it, love it. Oh, I didn't even click. I don't know if you're so it would have been around much Irish people, obviously growing up in Boston or not. But I know there's because we've made quite an impact there.
It is, yeah. The city's pretty much broken in half. It's the Irish and the Italians, and unfortunately for this podcast, I'm on the Italian side. That's why I wear the.
Hey, we can meet in the middle, John. We'll meet in the middle.
Well, that's what Boston learned to do. They learned to coexist. You know.
Coincide.
Yeah.
Love it, love it, John. So, from your childhood to your teenage years, you're submersed in creativity. You then take the trip to New York, New York. You go to college. Is it long? I know you're starting to. I did see in one podcast now that you said you invented frat rap, the title frat rap.
I did.
So for anyone who doesn't know what frat rap is, what is frat rap, and what impact did it have at the time?
See, if anyone can give a description of frat rap, it's me, because I invented it. I'm the guy. I'm Jon Kilmer. I invented frat rap. Besides me, I'm not gonna talk about myself. I'll talk about the other contributors to this music genre. But if you can take it back all the way to like 14, 15 years ago, maybe even a little before that, I think some of the early artists like Asher Roth, for example, when he came out with like I Love College, like that, and then like you had that era, and then you had like Mac Miller and Sammy Adams, and you had these guys kind of around 2008, 2009, 2010. Where it was very, very uncommon to see like young white kids rapping. It was just very uncommon. You just didn't see it. And then Chris Webby was another one who we can get into later, but I met him in college. We went to the same school together. And that's kind of how I fell into working with him. But I'm going to focus more on Mac Miller, because that's kind of who made more like the most impact on me, and I know Mike will say the same thing. But I mean, Mac Miller, just like this young, I think, Jewish kid from Pittsburgh, just hanging out with his friends, shooting videos, like nothing like fake about it. The most organic, like I'm just hanging out with my friends, making rap songs, making videos, and putting them on YouTube. And if you want to talk about quote unquote frat rap, and the word frat, I know it has like, negative stigma, but I think for the sake of this conversation, we're just talking about a demographic of young kids who were making music around this time where it was very uncommon. So when Mac Miller was doing it and he started to pop off, and he put out, the album Kids, which was like an incredible mixtape.
August 2010.
Yeah, I was like just graduating college at the time, and like it's just like it's crazy how like I'm getting chills right now just because of like the timing of how.
Well, you got me teary eyed. We're only 50 because I'm a big Mac fan, so you got me teary eyed 15 minutes in.
I know, like R.I.P. Like if I'm gonna owe anything to anyone, like he's the guy, especially his videographer Rex Arrow. I mean, I looked up to those videos so much.
Legendary.
When I got into the music video game, like I saw those music videos and I was like, oh, like these aren't, $100,000, $200,000 videos that you see on MTV. They're just like some guys hanging out with their friends, shooting on like a smaller camera.
Canon 70.
7D, yeah, 7D. And I had the craziest thing is I had a Canon 7D at the time, and I didn't even know it shot video. I had it for photography, and then I was watching these Mac Miller videos, and I did my research, and I saw that his videographer was shooting on Canon photography cameras, and I was like, oh my god. So then I put two and two together, and I started shooting videos on my Canon 7D, and I was like, wow, I can make videos like Mac Miller's videos. And I literally made a whole like 3-4 year career out of shooting music videos for kids, basically emulating Mac Miller's videos. But that's another story. But yeah, getting back to this whole frat rap thing, I mean, you have these early artists that are kind of coming out of the woodwork, like Asher Roth and Mac Miller and Sammy Adams. When I was just graduating college, and Mike was just graduating college. He had just undergone surgery, and he was playing baseball, and he didn't bounce back, and he just started getting into music himself. And for whatever reason, the stars aligned where he and I were the same age. We were both kind of leaving college around the same time, and we were both kind of getting into the music industry at the same time. And for whatever reason, like the stars aligned, and I was at a place in my career where I'd worked with a couple artists that he had heard of, and when I reached out to him and we started working together, it just like the timing couldn't have been more perfect. And
Love it.
and we owe
Love
it. And again, he talks about this all the time. He owes it all to Mac Miller too, because I think he and this is completely separate. Like we didn't do this at the same time. We didn't even know each other yet, but we were both kind of looking at what Mac Miller was doing, and I was looking at it from a video creative standpoint, and he was looking at it from an artist standpoint. And we were both like, "Oh my god, like we could do this, you know, like we could literally do this exact same thing." And look at the success that Mac Miller is seeing, and there had never been an artist like Mac Miller in the industry. You could make the argument that Asher Roth, yes, but Asher Roth was very much
Not independent though.
Exactly.
He was rostrum.
Exactly. Asher Ross was like thrown right into, I forget who produced I Love College, but he had some big players behind that song, and like there was a huge machine behind it. He was signing record deals. Mac was just like doing this on his own and doing it with his friends. And again, Mike and I both saw it, and we were like, we could both do this.
That's so cool. I love, man. As I do this podcast more and more, it really means a lot to me getting to chat to people like yourself who would have interacted with Mac or like would be familiar with like the true impact of what Mac has done. So back from that time, I want to bring you back to like when you just went to college. I seen a quote, and I just want to read you the quote real quick. So this is when you're in college, you're on GarageBand, you're in the basement. I do believe this is when you're in the basement producing.
Yep.
I worked with anyone that was willing to work with me. I worked with anywhere between 200 and 300 artists. That's a lot of artists.
Yeah, and it's just to clarify, I mean, your research is like immaculate, but I was on Logic Pro at the time. I graduated from GarageBand. I was Mike mentioned he was on GarageBand in his parents' basement. I hate to be a stickler. I mean, selfishly, I think the two things I really got out of working with so many people is one, I was just like really sharpening my craft because I was working constantly, and I was working with so many people, and I was doing it for like very little money, but with a lot of people, so I can make a living out of it. So it's kind of a win-win where, you know, these young kids that are in college or just out of college, they don't have to spend a ton of money to get a quality video or, you know, quality music. And I was just attracting so many artists to work with just because there weren't a lot of again, the divine timing. There weren't a lot of videographers out shooting music videos at that quality just because the technology wasn't there at the time. Now today you could do it with your iPhone and it would probably look better. But back then, you know, there was no videos, or videos were like crap on cell phones, and cameras were pretty expensive, and a lot of people didn't know how to use them yet. So that whole like videography boom hadn't taken off yet. So the timing was just like very divine for me.
Aligned.
And you know, when you look at that genre of music and low budget music videos, Mac Miller's guy, he was obviously very prominent, but then it was kind of like me. Like it was like him and then me, honestly. And I give Rex Arrow all the credit because like I literally just bit his entire style because I thought it was dope, and I just did things the exact same way. And kids who probably couldn't afford him or get to him, they went to me, and I shot all their videos. So, so like I literally owe everything to him as well. But one thing is I got to sharpen my craft. I worked with so many people that I was constantly working for several years when I was just starting out, and I was fortunate enough to make a living out of it, where I was living in New York City, and that's not a cheap city to live in. So granted, I was living, you know, in a 3-bedroom, and I was sharing this little apartment with a ton of people, but I was able to live off of what I was doing, like almost right from the jump. The first year was a little shaky in 2010, and then once we got to 2011, I was just like off to the races. Wasn't rich by any means, but I was like paying my bills, doing what I loved, and I never took a full time. I had you know, different internships along the way, but I'd never taken like an actual job. I was just working for myself right out of the gate, and after the first year into year 2, I was just like fully supporting myself off it, which again, very blessed to have done that. But it's because, you know, I had worked with so many artists, and I was just constantly working, and the second thing is I think the question you were asking was like how would I know if someone had talent, or if they were going to make it, or if they had
not just
exactly?
It's because I do music myself, And this podcast has done nothing but help benefit my music, because learning from people like yourself and understanding. And this podcast is directly inspired by three podcasts: Theo Vaughan's podcast, Modern Wisdom's podcast, and You Never Know podcast. And they're the mixture of what this is birthed.
Amazing.
But where I was going, oh yeah, from the themes. So what I've learned from, I'm really grateful now to be within the music industry and outside the music industry at the same time. So I get to see behind the curtain and in front of the curtain. So I get to still have the warm feeling in my belly and be so like filled with joy when I see people. And then I get behind the scenes of seeing how it all operates, the magic trick, and seeing how, as you know yourself. But you meet a lot of great artists, incredibly gifted artists, and you're like, wow, that talent is just God given.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you look at them and go, but they don't have this, they don't have that, and they're making the mistake over and over again.
Yeah.
And there's nobody to come and help them. They're going to have to figure it out. And you kind of go, maybe they won't figure it out. So when it comes, you meet so many great artists, but then the more people you meet, the more you realize, okay, you need more than talent.
Yeah, no.
Because if Mike was still relying on his talent, just the talent to get where he is now, I don't think. And just like yourself, if you're just relying on just the talent, there's so many different skills.
Yeah,
is kind of, I think, what I was getting at. What are the themes or skills you kind of notice in someone? You're like, okay, I'd be confident that person's going to do something.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, and this is more true today. It was a little easier back then because the music industry wasn't as oversaturated. Where today, I mean, there's never been more artists, never been more music released. Especially now during the streaming era, there's like 100,000 songs released every day, where this is back at a time in 2010, 2011, where streaming services like, Spotify and Apple Music, they didn't exist yet. And when you put music out, you put it on Apple Music and then you put videos out on YouTube, and that was it. And it was just harder, and it wasn't as cheap or like do it yourself as it is today as far as making music and being an independent artist. It was a lot harder back then. It was harder back then in the sense of like actually making it, but it wasn't as oversaturated, so it was very different 12, 13, 14 years ago. But as far as like qualities, now looking back in retrospect, I mean, the reason Mike took off as fast as he did was because of his backstory and the sports niche that he had, like underneath it all.
It was attached. It wasn't just the music,
and it was organic. He wasn't faking anything. Like literally since day one, and why I give Mike all the credit is because he never pretended to be something that he wasn't ever. And you could make the argument, it's like, Mike Stud back then, like douchebag, frat rapper, like he just like but like he was literally just making music about what he knew. He knew like his background is sports. He made a lot of sports references.
Authenticity.
Yeah, it's like he was just, you make the argument of whether you liked it or not, but he was being 100% authentic. And the fact that he had that niche and that backstory, it just literally like
complemented so well.
It complemented it, but it gave him such a leg up on everyone else, where he had such like a compelling story of going to Duke University, being the best closing pitcher they've ever had to this day, still has the lowest ERA. It's an incredible stat. So if you're
legendary,
and think of how many people around the world that are athletes that love to play sports, and you find someone with this backstory that you can relate to, and they're making music, you're going to say, yeah, like I whether this guy's talented or not, like I like this guy because I can relate to him. And of all the hundreds of artists that I worked with in those early years, not very many of them had that type of backstory or that type of authenticity where they could like bring something out that people could relate to. So that was like the huge underlying factor for Mike, which is why he got early success and early popularity, where his first fans were just all jocks. They were all guys, and they would, so like that's just kind of how it all started. And he never really had to, go on any tours where he was the opener. He was always the headliner, whether it was for 150 people at a, dirty dive bar, or, years later where, we're doing huge shows now. He had that early jump start just because of how compelling his story was.
I love that, man. I love that. I think a lot of people, it's so funny, John. I'm not sure how much time you have. Just I have so much I'm going to try to get through.
No, don't rush it, man.
Oh yeah, we're in for a good old chat. So
yeah,
John, I think a lot of artists, especially young artists, could learn from that, because I've heard Mike speak about it before. How authenticity to who you are is almost becoming more powerful than the music or the quality of the music.
Yeah,
because something I kind of want to compare to is like, you're like so naturally, like you're a very skilled person and like you have so many different skills, but you're so naturally yourself that like you want to chat to everybody wants to chat to you because you're just such an open grounded person. Like, and if you weren't that type of person, if you were just this multi-skilled person but didn't have the personality, then people wouldn't be open. You wouldn't play such a pivotal part, I don't think, in like the empire of like the Mike brand and whatnot. But because you're so natural in your skin, you have this personal brand and you have all the skills, and what comes together, it's magic. And it's the same for an artist. When that's like the more artists you see, especially like in the music industry, when they have a great story and are just authentic to themselves and they have good music,
Yeah, it's rare.
off you go.
It's very
Get a
rare.
big bag of money and invest.
It is very rare. No, you're absolutely right. 100%. And no, I think that's one thing that I think can attribute to why we've been so close with our fans over the years is because we've always been transparent, and we've always put, in one way or another, we've always put like ourselves out there to our fans, and we never really tried to be something we're not, or we never tried to act too cool, or whatever. We've always had the greatest respect and love for our fans, and whenever we put out content, and I was fortunate enough to make a lot of content for Mike over the years, literally from day one up until now. I never slowed down for 14 years. But throughout that content,
Jon Kilmer Studios LLC.
exactly, yeah, that's how it started. And whether we were making tour vlogs like Touring's Boring, or we were making these Sunday Stud Day mixed remix videos, or we later did the podcast, YNK podcast, we're just always putting ourselves out there so people knew exactly who we were. So again, just like that relatability factor, where that's why I think content is so important for artists. It was back then, and even more so now when you talk about authenticity, and that's how you stand out as a musician today, because there's so many artists. You have to put yourself out there for people to cling on to something they can relate to, because if you're not making content and you're not putting yourself out there, then the music just isn't enough. And if you want to be independent and you're not going to sign to a label where they're just pumping all this money and marketing behind you and putting you on the radio and spending all this money, people are gonna have no reason to cling to you, because there's a million other artists out there that they can go look at. So you have to put yourself out there. And any young artist that I talk to now, if they ask for advice or whatever, I just say make content. And I always gravitate towards podcasting, because I mean, just from my experience, the YNK podcast did so much for Mike's brand, where we have people now coming up to shows saying, "Oh, we found out about you through the podcast,"
And that's
incredible.
that's amazing.
That's incredible, because when you put all this like content out there of you talking for an hour at a time every week for 4 years, people are going to really understand who you are, and you're going to give them a million reasons to gravitate towards you and find some relatability. So, and that just makes you love the music 100 times more when you listen to it, because Mike's putting the same messages out in his music as he did in the podcast. So then now you have this overall like community and brand of all people that are thinking the exact same way. That's why the shows are so special, because everyone's on the same wavelength and the same frequency, because the podcast, the music, it's all preaching the same stuff. And when I go to things like the bar crawl in St. Pete, we did this crazy bar crawl in our St. Pete show where the fans like literally organized their own bar crawl of 300-400 fans the day before the show. And I went to this bar crawl before the show for 6 hours, and we were jumping around bar to bar. And each bar was just filled, jam-packed, 300-400 Mike fans, and they're playing Mike music, and everyone's
Incredible.
You see the community behind the music that we've kind of
Cultivated.
Cultivated over the past 13 years, and everyone's just on the same wavelength, and it's just so like humbling and so cool to see and be around. And
Yeah, man.
it's just like, and it's like the more years we go into this, the more you see it and the stronger it becomes, and it's just like it's just so amazing to see.
Yeah, man. We did the one, I can't remember the dude who was leading us. He was a funny character. I wish I remembered the name. But we did the bear crawl before.
In New York?
The Pier 17 show. Yeah, in New York. Yeah. We did this. It was the second day. It wasn't as big as the first day. It was the second day, but it was good crack, man.
And I wanted to make it out to those, but if it's a day of the show, I have no free time, unfortunately. So I was like heartbroken. I couldn't. They were sending me videos of the New York one of all the bars, and it's just so many people there. It was so cool to see.
Literally, just to anyone to get an idea of it, we'd walk into a bar. The Lows were playing. The podcast is on. You and Mike were on the big screen. It was just a great environment, man. A real great environment.
Yeah.
So John, yeah, you're in college. I seen you say previously that curiosity a lot of curiosity. You were just always curious and whatnot. You're in college. Shout out my boy Webby. I hope to have Webby on the podcast at some point. Shout out Webby, doing crazy stuff. Webby does not get enough credit, man. That man has built such an empire. Such an empire.
When you talk about, especially if you talk about years put in, I mean, I was working. I mean, he was doing stuff long before.
07?
Yeah, well, I think he was doing stuff long before I met him, but I had met him in 08, I believe, and he had already was like, well, established enough where he was putting music out on MySpace, and he had a good amount of fans already before I had even met him. And then throughout the rest of college, 08, 09, like 10, like he was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But like he if you talk about years put in, I mean, for like a young white kid rapping, when like he had no business being a young white kid rapping, he was just doing it anyways. And he was always like the incredible kid that would freestyle at parties, and he had like the gift of lyricism and rapping, and he would just do it live in front of your face, at parties and stuff, so you knew it was the real deal. And he was just that guy, and he, especially when we were in college, like he just made himself that guy in school. Everyone knew about him. He's like, because he would go around and he would like literally rap for everyone. He would put like his talent to the test, and he would do it in front of everyone. So I give him so much credit, because he was just doing it long before anyone else was doing it. Like before it was before the Mac Millers and the Asher Roths and the Sammy Adams, he was doing it already. He did it before everyone.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Shout out Webby. And again, universal line, and Webby just moving. Was it upstairs or downstairs in the dorm?
He moved it like upstairs. It wasn't even a dorm. He pledged the same fraternity I was in. It was. And like neither of us were like really fraternity guys, which was like if you think of like a frat guy, like neither of us at the time really fit the bill of like what a frat guy was. I don't even know why he pledged. I think I only pledged because like my school was very boring, and my roommate decided to do it, so I just went along.
Okay.
And I didn't have a lot of friends freshman year, so I just went with my roommate and I pledged with him because I had nothing else better to do. And I can't really speak to why Webby pledged the fraternity, but again, we pledged the same fraternity, different years. And in the fraternity house, he moved upstairs, the bedroom right above my head. And I had all the studio equipment downstairs because I was rapping myself. And I joke about inventing frat rap because I was literally the first guy in a fraternity to start rapping, and like putting it out. And I don't think anyone.
You did a couple of shows, didn't you? You did a couple of shows.
Not many, but a couple. Yeah. I don't know if they're still on YouTube, but if they are, I got to take them down immediately. But if
I couldn't find them. I couldn't find them.
Yeah, I took that shit down.
A W for the Jon Kilmer brand.
Yeah, but I used to go by J Kill, and like literally starting in like 2007, like I was in a fraternity for the first time, and I was rapping and making music. But it was funny music. Like I liked artists like Lonely Island, and like Andy.
You had a Lonely Island remix.
Exact. That's what kind of like that's what cemented me as the creator of frat rap.
Love it.
As Lonely Island came up with a song called "I'm on a Boat" with T-Pain, and I remember when that video came out. That music video came out. It blew my balls right out of my body. That was the craziest music video I'd ever seen in my entire life. It was just about being on a boat, and it was Lonely Island and T-Pain, and it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. And 3 days later, I came out with a song called "I'm in a Frat," and it was just the same beat, and instead of saying "I'm on a boat," the chorus was "I'm in a frat," and I did a whole song about it, and it started to take off on YouTube. And then that's why I joke about inventing frat rap, because I was in a fraternity, I rapped about being in a frat, and I rapped and I did it before everyone else.
You got them stripes, John. You got them stripes.
I don't know if I want those stripes, but I got
them. So that's kind of some of the shout out Webby and whatnot in the frat rap. In the 2011, so you get in contact with Mike, who was it 2 songs out at the time? Was it 3 or was it 2 songs he had out at the time? He had the.
I mean, I think he had, if you talk
between
about
2
like,
or 3, maybe.
Like big singles that people knew about. It was College Humor, and then the one after that, I forget what it's called. In This Life. It was those 2 songs, pretty much. Yeah.
So you get in contact with Mike. Mike comes down from Rhode Island, New York. The scene is 2011 at this point, is it?
Yeah, 2011.
Yeah, 2011. Just because I love movies, let's fucking make it a movie. Right, so it's 2011, right?
Yeah.
Siri, play God Only Knows. Mike's coming down from Rhode Island. John's this videographer trying to make his way in the big city. God, I'm going to make it.
It's something only God knows.
What was the moment like? You met Mike for the first time, and what happened? And then
Um,
first, then a couple of years.
yeah, first, I actually, yeah, I remember this pretty vividly of my first impressions of him. And I wrote about it. I've been journaling for like 7 or 8 years. So I wasn't journaling at the time when I'd first met him, but I remember like sitting down and actually writing down in my journal about some of the first times that I met him and what I felt and just what I thought about him, first impression wise. He and I had a lot of similarities, like he was very much in sports and I was doing the fraternity thing, and we kind of had that male camaraderie, like male loyalty, like underlying thing inside of us, and then we were both just kind of like arrogant pricks, honestly.
Fair.
We were kind of
Hey, honesty is wisdom.
yeah, we were like these like douchey, arrogant pricks, honestly, and we all thought we were cool, and and when I met him, like he was just like this big dude, like the biggest guy you'd ever seen, the broadest shoulders, like this brick shit house, and he had the confidence, like the most confidence I'd ever seen in my entire life, and he probably had that because he was great at sports all his life, and he just kind of had that chip on his shoulder of like having to prove everyone that he's the best, and he was confident, and when I saw that, I was like, oh my god, this guy's gonna be this guy's gonna kill it, like
Boy, got it.
because you're around him and you're like, oh yeah, this he's got it, he's because he'd already been that light before of being the best at something, like you could feel it in the air, and when I had first met him, even though like neither of us were very much talented at the time, we were just starting out. We were at the very, very, very beginning of our careers. But I could just I could feel that energy of like him knowing that he's going to be the best because again through sports, he had done that his whole life. His whole life was baseball and proving to everyone that he's the best, and he did that, and then it got taken away from him. So when he was going into music, I think he still had that same energy of like I got to prove everyone that I'm the best, and he had that from literally the very beginning.
Amazing. It's amazing, John, how if you're confident in, say, for Mike, it was like baseball and sports, and then he's entering another universe with music. It's amazing, though, as like humans, we can, if we have confidence in something else, it's contagious to another part of our life. Like doing this podcast has made me way more confident in all our businessy stuff because I've chatted to so many. Well, I love people, anyways. But because I need to do my research, I need to have everything organized. That has dripped into other sections of my life. Just if I wasn't confident in this, that would also drip in if I wasn't confident. So it's always like interesting to see someone's confidence. Oh, he was confident because he put so much hard work in,
Yeah.
and using that then to like build with the music. John, when you started building, what was them early years like? I know when you started touring, it was like a lot of partying, but what was that early 2011 to maybe 2015, that period? What was finding your feet in the music industry? What did that look like at the time?
Yeah. This is not too off topic, but I wrote about this in my last post because we just had that show in Chicago. I don't know if you saw the post when it was like raining.
I did. Yeah, incredible.
So this is, potentially one of our last, I mean, according to Mike, this is potentially one of our last shows in America ever, because he wants to take a step away from touring and stuff like that and potentially retire altogether. And he decides to do the song Rodman as the last song, as like an encore. So he ends the show, and then we have this graphic that comes down on the screen of like a banner, like an NBA banner falling, and it says the Upside Down Tour 2014. And it's just kind of this symbolic thing of saying, we're hanging it up because like we're almost done. And then he comes out and plays Rodman, and as he's playing, it just starts literally downpour raining the entire song. And while it's happening, his good friend Marcus Stroman's at the show, and Marcus is on stage with him, kind of jumping around. And if I like go back to some of the first shows I ever did with him, and I mentioned he was never an opener on a tour, but he did do a couple shows where, he was not the headliner in the early days, in like the very, very, very beginning. He was kind of on these showcases with like 3 or 4 artists, and he was, not the headliner. And during those first couple shows I filmed for him in 2011, I remember like Marcus being there as well. And just to give, for people who don't know, Marcus Stroman, he's a pitcher for the Yankees now, but he's been in the MLB for over 10 years, I think about 10 years or over 10 years now. And he and Mike played at Duke together. And I think Mike's the reason that Marcus even went to Duke in the first place. I think he kind of like he kind of convinced him to go there, and they became really great friends through school. And then it's just kind of crazy to see that even though Mike got injured, Marcus kind of went on and he continued to play baseball and succeeded at a very high level, and still is. But I think back to those first couple of shows I filmed for Mike, and I'm on stage, and Mike and Marcus, they're kind of all running around stage together singing songs, and then we, fast forward 13 years, we're on a stage, potentially one of our last shows in America, and it just starts downpouring, and Mike and Marcus again side by side, still friends.
Very wholesome.
Very wholesome. Just kind of seeing it kind of all come full circle, and seeing it from my perspective, it's incredible because I'm kind of like the eyes and ears and the one who's been documenting all this since day one. So like I see it more clearly than anyone. I've just kind of been a fly on the wall and seeing it all these years. So I just wanted to talk about that because that was just like a very incredible moment, a very beautiful moment. But to answer your question, those early years, things took off really fast. I mentioned Mike was kind of an opener for a few shows, and that didn't last very long. That was, that was like less than a year. It was probably only a handful of shows. And I think our first national tour, if it wasn't 2011, it was 2012, but it was about a year less into Mike making music, or maybe
which is extraordinary for any artist to have that turnaround.
Yeah, he put College Humor out in 2010, and I think he was doing shows right away. But I think, and there were a few headlining shows that I wasn't around for yet, but they were very, very, very small. And there were just a couple of regional shows he had done around the country, and I wasn't around for those, and I heard they were very small. But his first actual national tour was around 2011, 2012, and that's when we were like actually, going in a minivan and had a trailer on the back, and drove from city to city together and stayed in shitty hotel rooms and played in dive bars for 100 people, 150 people, and if God forbid 200 people showed up, we thought we were the biggest stars in the world. And
I did the ego just went, what? There's 200 people out there, bro. Get some more bottles in.
Yeah. Round of shots for everyone. But those early years, I just have so many fond memories because I had known Mike for a year at that point, or a year and a half. I barely
still building the friendship, building rapport.
I barely knew him, and he brought his boys along that he had known just at a very young age. One guy who he grew up with as a neighbor, and then another guy he had known since middle school. And like he
lived. Is that Blue or?
Yeah, Blue and Fader. And Fader.
Shout out Blue, DJ Fader.
Yeah,
shout out.
And DJ Fader, it's he was Mike's DJ, and today he's Mike's tour manager, and he's running this amazing operation. So, but yeah, Mike just kind of like surrounded himself with either guys he had grown up with, or just and at the time, like, he was obviously taking a chance on me because I was I had just met him, but I would like to think at the time I had a lot to offer, so I was definitely a key player as far as helping out and bringing value to the situation. But at the end of the day, we were all young and we had no idea what we were doing, and we were idiots. And those early days, thank God I was there, honestly, because I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing other than filming the shows, because I had never filmed concerts really before. I'd never been on a tour before, and I was just kind of brought along with a video camera, and no one was really telling me what to do other than just like film the shows, and literally from like the first show of the first tour we were on, I filmed it, and I didn't just film the show, I filmed like the entire night of like literally everything going wrong.
Best content. It's the best content.
And like we had no idea what we were doing. We had never been on a tour before. DJ Fader, I think he was the tour manager back then too, because we didn't have a tour manager. So he was dealing with like showing up, setting up the equipment, making sure we were getting paid at the end of the night. And like he was brand new to it, and he had never been a tour manager before.
He's kind of making it up as he goes along.
Exactly. So like I have this we were looking through the footage the next day, and sure enough, like DJ Fader, like who's supposed to be our tour manager, is like wasted at the end of the night in the car, and he's like, oh, I lost the car keys. Like I forgot to get our paycheck. We didn't get paid. Like and like I'm showing all, and like the show was like, there was 100 people there probably, but it was nuts, and everyone's going crazy, and they're psyched to be there, and just kind of showing and then like another thing that we did in the early days, which I think why we grew such a strong fan base, is after the shows we would just go to the bars with literally every single person at the show. We'd say, hey, we stay at the venue and drink there, or like we're all going here, come with us, and we're just gonna we're just gonna party.
That connection, yeah.
And
And because, sorry, go on. Go
oh
on.
no, so I just like those early days was like you think about like a politician's campaign of going city to city and campaigning.
Literally.
That's what we were doing, and this was a much more fun campaign. But we were we were going city to city, and we weren't just doing the shows and packing up our bags and going back to the hotel. And we were literally like doing the shows, filming it all, going out to the bars, filming it all, hanging out with the fans, buying them drinks, having an experience with them, and then I was piecing all that together and putting it on YouTube and like showing our experiences with these fans and featuring everyone together. And that's what kind of grew the community right from the very beginning. Is we weren't just having those experiences with the fans, but we were creating content based around that experience, and we're putting it online. And then when people were seeing that on YouTube, they were seeing these fun experiences we were having and how we hung out with our fans and stuff like that, and how we were having just a good time. It started to like snowball into people seeing it and saying like, oh, like I want to go to a show next time because they're having literally the most fun time in the world. And then the people that were at the show, they had the best time, so they're telling their friends. And then next time we're at that city, like those same fans that came the first time, they come. But then all the people that had seen like the videos we put on YouTube, they were like, oh, I don't want to miss it this time around. So then that's why every time we went to a city, and at this point we have been to cities 7, 8, 9, 10 times just because we had been on so many tours. I've done over 600 shows with Mike. We've been on 7 or 8 or 9 national tours over the years, over 13 years. We've come back to cities so many times, and we put in like so much time and effort into coming back to cities and growing it just year after year, and putting out content and making sure more people come back the next time. It was literally like campaigning. And if it's one thing we did really well besides the content, it was just like putting in the work to keep coming back to cities and to keep trying to step up time after time. And connecting with our fans each time, so we can make it bigger the next time. And a lot of artists, like I don't see them doing a lot of that campaigning and going to shows and to be fair, like touring is very expensive. And like I know artists today that have very successful streaming numbers, in the millions of like monthly listeners on Spotify, and they have a hard time
Translate. Yeah.
I don't know if it's an ego thing or an expectation thing, but just because you have millions of monthly listeners, it doesn't mean people are going to buy tickets to Translate to come see you. And like, I think it's an ego thing of like seeing success on the streaming side, but then you go to a city and only like a couple hundred people show up. Like, no matter how big your streaming numbers are, like you got to put in the work and go to a city and just eat shit.
Yeah.
If 30 people show up, show those 30 people the best fucking time.
It's the best word, yeah.
Show them the best time in the
man,
world. Create content around it. Like, show them the best time ever. Like, and then just put it out to the world and say, like, I did this show that only 30 people showed up, but we had the best time ever. I guarantee the next time you show up, twice as many or 3 times as many people will show up, and you just have to eat it. And again, we were really lucky, and Mike had that step up of having that backstory of being an athlete and so many people relating to it, where like he didn't have to eat too much shit in the beginning. And like I said, like the first national tour, like there were no like embarrassing shows where like 7 people showed up, like it was always like a semi-full bar every time. So he was very lucky to have that backstory. But at the same time, like right from the beginning, those early years, like we were campaigning so heavy, and we did
just
it,
on
we
the
did it every year.
Just on them. First of all, I think for any artist to listen to this, that is just some of the best game you could hear ever. And when it comes to a streaming artist, you're going to get fans that, like, as you know, will stream the music and love the music. But which are they going to remember more? When they streamed a song, maybe once or twice, or they had an unbelievable experience at a gig? Like, you may sometimes, I don't know if you're the same, but sometimes I kind of forget what the gig was like, but I never forget the feeling. Like, I kind of forget the visuals for whatever reason. Something about gigs, I don't know, but I never forget the feeling of what I felt at a gig.
Drunk?
And no, I don't really drink, to be honest with you, which is funny because I made the whole Irish thing, whatever.
Yeah.
But the last time I drank, funny enough, was at Hosier. So shout out Hosier.
Yeah, I've seen Hosier. He's very talented. Yeah.
Good dude. Hey, that long hair, man. That luscious long hair. So, anyways. Where I was going was the connection you build and willing to invest that. And I think people are, like, a lot of artists are fearful. They're fearful of turning up and only 30 people. But man, them 30 people oh man, your music, the music could mean so much to them. They've spent their money, like you know more than anybody because you guys have built such an amazing thing that like for someone to go to a gig, they have to schedule. Like people have busy lives. People are not. A lot of people are struggling financially. Like it's only getting harder to just like have a baseline of financials. So say you have like Matthew. Shout Matthew's my friend. I'm trying to just think of it. We have Johnny. Johnny's a different name. I'm trying to be creative here. Francis. We have Francis who works a 9 to 5, is paying rent, and then has like maybe one day off. And that day off, he's going to organize with all his friends to get to the gig. And he's looking forward to it for months. So it means so much. So I think a lot of artists should maybe be reminded sometimes of how meaningful that is.
Yeah, no, but to play devil's advocate, it's like it is. One, performing in general is already very difficult, and it's
Yeah, I understand
it's
that.
no easy thing, and especially if you're just starting out and you get nervous on stage and you're not comfortable yet, and then going out and like actually seeing like only 20 people in the crowd and like having like the like not just the talent to go up there and perform, but like the courage to go up there and the charisma and the courage, like it's no easy feat. So it's like easier said than done. It's honestly easier said than done, but it's the people who can do it right from the beginning. I give them all the credit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I won't lie because I'm biased because like it's funny with this podcast and what I'm building. I could have easily stopped music now because I haven't made it work, but I've only become more confident in like how better I'm getting at the craft and figuring it out with the podcast has been perfect because I'm like, okay, this is how I do it. I introduce people to the podcast, me, my world, and I build it around the music then. And the reason I'm slightly biased is because I've done the 2 people. I've done like, I think the most I ever performed was like 200-300 people, which is a small, maybe still small in the grand scheme of things, but I was very grateful for that experience. But I've done 2 people, and one of them was my manager at the time, and the other was the fucking owner of the bar. And we did the cameras, we did the angles where you move the camera to the side and you take pictures to make it look like it was something, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I am a little bit biased when it comes to that. But John, I want to keep her moving. John, I'm going to bring you to a fun part of the podcast that I do called Quick Fire Questions. These are just some quick fire questions to like get an idea of some little things in your life. Right, yo. So if you're ready, again, you can give short answers, long answers, whichever you like.
I'm so ready.
And go. So favorite wrestler is The Rock.
Yep.
What is your favorite wrestling moment of all time?
Easy. This is a very easy question. This is I believe The Rock and Vince McMahon were in. This is when the Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock were like kind of going at it head to head, and they were kind of like they were just like kind of like always fighting to see who was going to be on top. And I remember The Rock and Vince McMahon were in the ring, and then Stone Cold Steve Austin drives out in a Coors Light like pickup truck, like not pickup truck, like 16-wheeler, and drives into the arena and blows everyone's mind. Everyone, because you know when Stone Cold comes out, like the glass shatters, and then
fuck
he drives out in like in a semi truck with Coors Light on the side of it, and everyone's like, "What the fuck is he doing with this truck?" And then Stone Cold jumps out and takes out a fire hose and starts spraying The Rock and Vince McMahon with beer out of a fire hose and just blasts them. And until they just like fly, and everyone goes fucking apeshit, and then he just goes in there and kicks everyone's ass. It was like easily, if you think about the Attitude Era in wrestling, it was the greatest moment of my childhood. I look back on his Instagram and TikTok and watch that maybe once a month just to fire me up because it's crazy.
Love that.
Yeah,
love it, man. I got into cold baths, cold plunging. And I used to use the Triple H theme song. Don't Motorhead, time to play the game. And the lads have videoed me getting in the plunge. Oh, it's a good time. Yeah. John, favorite cereal?
This is so lame because I'm healthy now. I'm a healthy adult and I'm a loser. No one likes me because I'm healthy, and there's like this protein cereal called what's it called? It's called Magic Spoon. It's called Magic Spoon cereal, and it's a high protein, delicious cereal. This is not an ad. I recommend anyone eat Healthy Spoon if you want to live a healthy lifestyle. I'm Jon Kilmer.
Love it. John, best movie you've watched in the last year or favorite movie of all time? Or you can answer both if you'd like.
Yep. Favorite movie of all time. That's easy. It's Almost Famous. Have you ever seen it?
Almost Famous. Ooh, what's it about now? Let me see now. I might know it, I might not.
Almost Famous, written and directed by Cameron Crowe. It came out in 2000, I believe. And
Okay.
it takes place in the 70s. It's about a young 15-year-old kid who wants to be a rock journalist who goes on.
Okay, interesting. No, I haven't seen
He
it.
goes on tour with one of his favorite up and coming rock bands and ends up having to write an article for Rolling Stone magazine. And he goes on tour with one of his favorite up and coming bands. So you could see the parallels there. But that had even before I started touring or anything, that had been my favorite movie. It's starring Kate Hudson and a few other actors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and a few other actors you probably never heard of. It was not a success in the box office, but it was obviously very critically acclaimed. It has, and it's based off Cameron Crowe, the writer and director. It's kind of based off of his life, where I believe he was a photographer or he went on tour with Led Zeppelin, like when he was younger. He's like 17 or something. He went on tour with Led Zeppelin, I think, and it was kind of based off of his own experiences. So, Almost Famous, highly recommend it to anyone. It's literally the best movie ever made.
Cool. Best movie you watched in the last year or so?
Oh, jeez. They don't really make them like they used to, Marty.
You're telling me, John. You're telling me. I do not be on Netflix watching them new Netflix movies. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, fuck. I just all right. This is hard because I haven't seen like an amazing movie in the past year. But one I haven't like I think comedies are just awful now. But one comedy I saw recently, which I like actually genuinely laughed at pretty much through and through, it was Ricky Stenicki. Did you see that?
Ricky Stenicki, yeah, great movie, yeah, great movie.
I love go back to wrestling. John Cena in any comedic role, I'm there for it. I think I like.
It's such a funny name too. Now that I think about it, Ricky Stenicki.
I like.
Shout out Zac Efron.
I like Zac Efron. I'm just gonna say it. Like
I was gonna say, you're a Zac Efron fan.
Yeah.
If you like a good rom-com, man, he was in a great rom-com there. I was shitting on Netflix movies when I probably want one in a couple of years, so let me take that back. But he was in a good rom-com that recently came out. I actually watched on the flight over to New York.
Nicole Kidman. With Nicole Kidman.
Yeah. Did you watch it?
Yeah, no, I saw that. I liked that because I thought it was.
I thought it was really good, man.
I thought it was really funny. I'm a big Efron guy, and I kind of like poked fun at celebrities and just how like needy and egotistical they are. Mike, I'm not talking about you, but maybe a little bit.
Guess.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But no, that role is really funny. Kind of seeing Zac Efron almost play like a version of himself. I'm sure, which is really funny, and that was a lot of fun. But Ricky Stenicki, I mean, you just don't see a lot of funny comedies anymore, and like they're just very cookie cutter and they're playing it safe. Whereas like I'm seeing John Cena just like absolutely fucking crush it, and like. With John Cena, I think like I saw when he first left wrestling and tried to become an actor the same way The Rock did. He was in these movies like it was like The Marine and
The Marine, yeah,
and like where they try to make him again like the leading action hero, and it didn't the movies were fine, but like it didn't really translate the same way it did with Dwayne and like The Rock. But even The Rock, like he went on to do comedic roles and they were great. But then they realized, I think it was like fuck, that movie with like Amy Poehler and Tina Fey. It was a Baby Mama, I think, like that. I don't know if you've seen that movie where John Cena had like a
Johnny's the drug dealer.
Yeah, very very minor. He had I think I don't want to like speak too I don't want to speak too quickly, but I think it was his first comedic role. The first time they put him in like a funny position, and he absolutely stole the show. And he had like the
great scene. Great scene.
You would never expect to put him in a funny role like that, and he fucking knocked it out of the park. And the second Hollywood realized John Cena's funny, they put him in all comedic roles, and he took off.
Yeah.
He fucking like Ricky Stenicki, like he just absolutely slays it. And then you got Zac Efron, and you got Schultz. What's his name? The redhead guy.
He has the podcast
Andrew
with Bobby Lee.
Santino. Yeah, you have Santino in there, and like it's just a very fucking funny comedy. And I'm sorry, I'm babbling because I love movies so much, but I hadn't seen. If you put them up against the greats, it's it's nothing. But in the past year, we haven't seen a lot of funny movies. That one, I highly recommend. Ricky Stenicki, very funny.
I think that's about to change though. Now,
yep,
my boy Vince Vaughn. One of my dreams to do a movie with Vince Vaughn. Vince, I'm coming for you. You'll be on the podcast at some point. Don't know when that'll be, but shout out you, Vince. But he said that it's beginning to change.
I saw that clip.
He said the tides, and I was like, bro, if Vince is saying it, that has to hold some weight that Vince is saying it.
Yeah, I mean, it's this everything kind of cycles, and I heard, I wasn't around for it, but I heard like in the '80s this happened too, where there was this bubble, this piece is called a PC bubble, political correctness bubble, where everyone was just being so politically correct, and you think about the '50s and the '60s. And probably even the '70s of movie making, everything was like so buttoned up and like showing the perfect family, like Leave It to Beaver, everyone's happy, whatever, of like everything just being perfect and clean and like nothing offensive happening. And then I think it was like in the '80s when stuff started to flip on its head, where people were just fucking sick of that. And you saw stuff like The Simpsons, for example, where like the husband is no longer like the smart provider, and like the wife is the smart one, and the husband's the dumbass. And then you saw things like I'm Married with Children with like Al Bundy. I don't know if you saw that show of Ed O'Neill. Like they just started showing things differently, where it's like, you know, like the family's not perfect, and like they started showing like trashy people, and like the husband being the stupid one and the wife being the smart one, and like it just like there was just this political correctness bubble where everything just flipped, and like stuff started to be funnier, and like they started to poke more fun at stuff, and it started to just be like a more like real version of reality rather than this perfect button-up version that Hollywood was creating. And throughout the past 10-15 years, everything's been so buttoned up again. Like everyone's getting offended by everything, and everyone's fucking sick of it. Everyone's so fucking sick of being like everyone being offended by everything, where like enough is enough, and eventually like someone's going to come up with a movie, and I don't know if it's starting to happen a little bit, but there's going to be one big movie. I don't know what it is yet, but where it's going to be like this rated R movie that comes out that actually takes a chance of like being offensive, and people are going to rally behind it, and it's going to make a ton of money, and then everyone's going to follow suit and start making movies like that again. And it hasn't happened yet, but maybe it'll be a Jon Kilmer original. I don't know, but
hey, I love it. I love it. I love it.
Already working on the next one, but someone's going to make it, and there's just going to be this cult classic that comes out, and it's going to change everything. And I'm still waiting for that moment to happen.
Waiting on that.
Yeah.
Just quickly there, or else with the whole podcast will turn into movies. But real quickly there, just because it's a good one. Jennifer Lawrence, man. Jennifer Lawrence had a movie there, I think about 2 years ago, or maybe a year ago. And that was teetering on pressing, like taking the piss out of like whatever generation is running things right now. I don't know which alpha, or not alpha, but Z or one of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And but it's a really good, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think you'd enjoy it, so I'll send it on. But last question there out of them. Favorite actor of all time?
Besides Dwayne Johnson, I'd have to go with. I'm a fan of my Boston guys. You know, there's so many great Boston actors,
okay.
And I gotta.
Marky?
What's that?
Marky? Mark Wahlberg?
Oh,
Matt Damon?
Yeah. You talk about Wahlberg. You talk about Matt Damon. You talk about Ben Affleck. You talk about Tom Brady's appearance in Ted. But yeah, I love all my Boston guys. I think Wahlberg's awesome. Obviously, anything Dwayne Johnson, I'm gonna go watch it. Huge Zac Efron guy.
Oh, the doggy.
Yeah. Hey buddies, it's okay. Huge Zac Efron guy. I'll see anything Zac Efron. So those are some of my favorite guys for sure.
Who's that? Do you have a number one at all of them, or are they all just like you all like them a lot?
Dwayne Johnson.
Dwayne Johnson. Hey, The Rock.
He's the GOAT. The Rock's the GOAT.
Yeah, shout out The Rock, man. Shout out The Rock. John, I just want to move into a little bit of like you and the gang, and then just move into a little bit of spirituality, if that's okay with you.
Sure, let's do it.
If that's okay with you. So, I seen a great quote. So you're touring a lot from building, and there's so many key points. There's like, cause like I've researched the story. There's so many great points in the story, but you were working the 2011, and like I found a lot of the old videos. There's actually an old Mike Stud YouTube that has a lot of the old videos, and man, there was just so many of them. It was just so many of them. Like you guys were just turning out, like as well as it was like. Because I would have been only introduced to like your kind of, not conveyor belt in the sense of like mundane, but conveyor belt in terms of how much you kind of like put out. It's like over and over and over again. And that's been a stem. So from the music videos, did you guys move to LA? Was it around the 2015 time? Or when did like the LA get introduced?
2015 or 2016. Yeah, right around that time. I think it was 2015 though, yeah.
2015, which is interesting because around that 2015 time too, which I'll touch on in a little bit, was the journaling. I don't know if it was around then. You said in an interview it was around 2015 that you started journaling.
Good, you're good.
Um,
I actually started journaling the second, literally on my flight to LA. I think, like on my flight moving to LA, I started journaling.
okay, wowzers, that's perfect. That
Yeah,
lined up perfect.
yeah.
So you guys move in and begin the Los Angeles dream. Living in, did you stay in Studio City, or did you kind of move around before you got somewhere, or was it the same house, the Stevenson Ranch, that you moved into, or what's that period like?
It was crazy. I mean, that was the first time because before that, when we first started, Mike was still living in Rhode Island, and he was taking the train down to New York like all the time because I was living in New York and I was starting my Jon Kilmer Studios recording studio down there, and he would just take the train down almost every weekend, I think, and then there was a time where he was kind of like living in a small apartment, like kind of nearby in New York for like a year or two. And we did the whole New York City thing. And then like when we moved to LA together, that was kind of the first time we were like, let's just all like take the plunge, live together, like fully immerse ourselves in this and like really do it. And just live under one roof and just like operate as a business and really do it. So it was huge for me. I mean, you think about like the symbolism of like getting on a plane and like going to LA to live your dream. It's like, it's a lot of people do it, but like, I was one of those people, and that's why I kind of sat down and started journaling, because I was like, this is really fucking cool. Like I'm going to the West Coast to live with my friends and just continue to try to reach like a high level of success, and all do it together. So that was really cool. And we started in West Hollywood. We didn't start in Studio City. So we only lived in two places, and we lived in West Hollywood, right on the Sunset Strip, which is like a very symbolic street and like a very symbolic area. We actually lived in a house that was literally like a stone's throw distance from where Motley Crue's first house was in 1981, when they did the same thing and all moved in together for the first time. We were literally living across the street from where their first place was. And it was by a venue called the Whiskey Go-Go, which is where they did all their shows every weekend. We lived like literally right across the street from that. And the Sunset Strip isn't what it used to be in the 80s. It's kind of lame now, honestly. But just, again, that symbolism of like living two doors down. And that was right around the same time too, where I was just starting to read that book, The Dirt, for the first time, which now is like
great movie.
Now very popular. They made a movie of it, but I got introduced to that book right around when I was like first moving to LA, and I was reading it and kind of the come up story of Motley Crue and how they all moved in together in LA. And then sure enough, coincidentally, we all moved to a place right across the street from that house, which was like mind blowing. To me, it was the coolest thing in the entire world. Although they had some crazier stories than we had, but
I'd say your stories weren't too Fairvine.
Yeah. And we were like, we were obviously very immature, but we were a lot older than they were. They were starting out. They were like 20, 21 years old, 19. I think Tommy Lee.
They were that young. I didn't know they were that young.
I think Tommy Lee was like 19 years old, and like the rest of them were like 20, 21, and then Mick Mars was obviously older. He was like in his mid to late 20s, but they were very young when they started, and we were in our mid to late 20s. So we were like a little more grown and like had already seen. We weren't just starting out. We already had years under our belt. So like, we were already kind of on our way. But it was definitely like a risk to go out there and just keep doing it. And then later on, 2 years later, we ended up moving to Studio City to we called the Stevenson Ranch house.
Oh man, I love that. There's something I wanted to mention to you, John, is me and my best friend, the Double P Master, aka Upbeat, aka Finn. He's a rapper. He has multiple names, but my best friend Finn. Mm-hmm. We would have like obviously followed the music and everything Mike has done and you have done over the last couple of years. But just how you guys moved like in together, one of the reasons we connected so much with the whole entire brand is we moved as a gang too. So we all moved in together, me and my friends, back in 2020 because we have a company called Excel. Mm-hmm. And we all moved in and started moving from place to place. So then obviously seeing you guys, we're like, oh, they're just like us. They're literally doing like the same thing, just moving as a gang. Mm-hmm. And it was the same in terms of the camaraderie, because you live with these people and they're your friends, but they become family. And it comes to the point where like you don't even have to say anything. You just understand how people act and understand people's little you understand their attributes or things that might annoy you, but there's just like this understanding. Mm-hmm. And like that only happens when you spend like years around people. Was it like that too? Got to the point where like you were just like family? living when you were living out there?
Yeah. I couldn't tell you the exact moment, but I mean, everything became very institutionalized in the sense that we lived together, we went on tour together, we went out to eat together. It was literally like every single thing we did was together for about
Yeah, I love that.
7 years. For
Which
about,
is crazy, man. Which
yeah,
is crazy.
for like 7 years, and it's yeah, you start to form a bond that's like it's beyond friendship, and it's yeah, it is a lot closer to family, but it's also very like it's hard to explain to people because it's it's the dynamic is very difficult too because I mean Mike's obviously the artist, he's the star, and like everything's kind of based around him and his music and stuff like that, and honestly, like a lot of a lot of people's egos can't handle that, and that's why like after I read The Dirt, I read every single rock autobiography under the sun, just because like those are the books I like to read. And you look at every band that broke up or didn't make it or didn't want to be together anymore. It's because all around egos, like the lead singer would become the star, and the rest of the band would be just kind of like a supporting crew member, and then their egos couldn't handle it and they broke up, and it happened to Motley Crue a few times, even though they were all kind of stars in their own right. But it's a very interesting dynamic when you have to kind of like make everything based around one person. Like the way I always was is like I was happy to be where I was, and like the fact that I got any recognition for me doing what I was doing, I'm supposed to be the guy behind the scenes. The fact that I was getting any recognition, I was like, this is crazy. Like this is so cool. Like camera guys and like what producers, like they don't get any shine whatsoever. And Mike always made a environment amongst his team where it was like a we, not I, it was we, and he made all of us part of it. It wasn't just like I'm the star, you guys are over here supporting me. It was like a group of friends, and we were all kind of like in a way sort of sharing the spotlight, especially when we were doing like our videos and our tour vlogs. Like we were all just kind of characters on this show in a way, where Mike was still the star, but like we were all a part of it, and I was always very grateful for that. So but with that being said, I mean we were living in a house and we were having this dynamic, and we're all friends and we're all quickly becoming family. But like I never forgot that like this is Mike's thing. Mike's the star, and although like we're here to support him and we're a part of it and we're in the spotlight too, like this is about him. Like I'm here to support him. And some people honestly just can't handle that dynamic. They just can't. Where they have to like their egos they just can't handle it, and that's why like we've lost people along the way because it's. Some people just can't like let Mike be Mike and like let Mike be the star of the operation. And that's how it has to be.
There's something I want to mention there. I think obviously for anyone who wants to understand what happened with Foley, there's a whole podcast and there's whole information for like on the podcast, but not really putting focus on that, but from losing people generally as you get older, John. There's one thing that like it's over the last I think 2 years I've lost. Thankfully they're still alive. I wish them health in life, but it's happened twice. It happened recently when one of my best friends just cut me out of their life just like that, like just no cut out. And another time before that we had something where it almost shaked our core friend group. And we've been friends for years, like, and it really shaked our core friend group and nearly broke up this, like, it nearly severed, like, this undeniable chain of trust and, like, loyalty and honesty we had. But thankfully, again, we didn't, just because, like, we were so close to each other. I just want to read that because I did prepare this question, yeah. What are, like, the core values that helped keep your friend group together even when you face the toughest challenges? Like, what are the values within each other that always seem to stick even when you did face tough challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak on behalf of myself and probably Mike too, because I think we both shared this, but I think it was just like a relentless ambition, it's and I consider myself pretty ambitious, and Mike is way more ambitious than me, and that was contagious to be around. And I think that like us having one common goal and like working towards it together, and just kind of having like that chip on our shoulder and just like the never back down, like we're just going to do this and keep our heads down and keep going and like never stop. Even if we do fail or even if there are hard times, just that persistence of just, he has that saying, keep going. Yeah. That's literally been our shit since day one. We like literally just never stopped. People want to like I said this in a past podcast, and since you've done all your research, you've probably seen it and probably have it written down somewhere. But the only difference between the people who make it and the people who don't is the ones who made it just kept going. They never stopped, and whether it was for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, they literally just never stopped, and they just kept trying. And like you look at, if you want to talk about the music industry, like Mike's a good example, but then you look at guys like Macklemore or Jelly Roll, and like these guys that literally busted their fucking dicks for like 10 plus years, just busting their fucking ass, and just literally never stopping. Like Jelly Roll won Best New Artist at the CMAs, and he'd been an artist for 20 years. He'd been an artist for 20 years, and he won Best New Artist after 20 years. But what I'm saying is, like, Mike and I, like, I think as far as our personalities and our traits, we share that. We share that persistence of just like, we're just gonna keep doing this because this is what we love to do. And then, you know, after a certain amount of years, we started to actually make a difference, and it shared a very special connection with our fans, which we were very grateful for. So we had that aspect of it too. But we're just never going to stop doing this because we know we can do it. We're going to outwork everyone. And it's just like that hard work mentality that we had. And I think that's what really have kept us together even to this day, where it's like, I always tell him till the fucking wheels fall off. Like he says jump, I say how high. Like I'm just gonna keep working as hard as I can, because like we've built something to this point so special where it's bigger than all of us. It's bigger than him and it's bigger than me. It's like this massive thing now, this huge community, and like no one gets to be in this position. Like we're in such a fucking like amazing. I'm so grateful for the situation and the position we're in. Granted, it was well earned. Like we worked our ass off, but like a lot of luck was involved too. And it's like, I'm not going to take advantage of this and just like half-ass it. And neither is he. Like we're just going to do this until quote unquote the wheels fall off, or we decide, you know, we've had enough and we just want to start another aspect or chapter in our lives.
I love that, John. Very well said. Very poetic. I know it's cliche, but the harder you work, the more lucky you get. And I think you guys just work your ass off. John, on the, I think also just something important there is that undeniable authenticity of being completely authentic to yourselves, and you guys sharing that is the reason like that you like haven't gone your separate ways while you always had the ambition. Again, I think it's just that raw honesty and that raw authenticity that you guys both share. It's incredible to see. It really is incredible to see in a friendship.
Thank you.
But so John, right, we chatted a lot of things. We chatted about growing up, the college year, the music year, living in LA. I want to bring you kind of more to present day. And so it's 2022. It's, I do believe, is it April 2022? And you're on the motorway in a car. What happens? Is it a normal car journey? Did something happen?
Marty, what are you doing to me? I don't want to remember this. No, I'm kidding. This again, this is just like a wild time in my life. I'm driving to Nashville, and up until now I'd been living nomadically with Mike and the guys because we left LA in 2021. We spent about a year or two living around the country. Every couple months we'd move somewhere new. It was during COVID. And then right around the end of that, I believe I'm coming from Austin, Lake Travis in Austin, and I'm driving to Nashville with all my belongings in my car. And I had just, if I hadn't, I was just about to, but I think I had just purchased my first home. So I bought a house in Nashville, and I have all my stuff in the trunk of my car. It's nighttime. I'm driving from Austin to Nashville, and we're about to rehearse for the Not My First Rodeo tour for about a week of rehearsal. And on my way there, I'm right outside Dallas, and this truck is weaving through traffic at 100 miles an hour and just fucking completely swipes me on the highway and knocks out my back left wheel right off the axle. And I start doing donuts like this, 70 miles per hour on a crowded highway. Somehow my car didn't flip, and somehow I didn't crash into anyone else. I don't know how that's even possible. and I just kind of fling off the highway and get onto like a service road. I go all the way off like through 4 lanes of highway, through some grass onto a service road with just my wheel completely off my car, and completely unharmed, uninjured. And it was I think it was the scariest moment of my life. It was the second scariest moment of my life. It was wild, man. And I mean, a lot of people have been in car accidents, so I'm not gonna act like I'm special. But the thing that does make it special, and I'll fast forward 2 weeks from then, 2 to 3 weeks from then. Fast forward, we're on the Not My First Rodeo tour, and our tour bus is parked alongside a parking lot, an empty parking lot in Syracuse, New York, and we have an off day. It's my birthday, April 25th.
It's your birthday. Damn, I didn't know it was your birthday.
It's my birthday that night. We all had a lovely dinner at PF Chang's. We all drank Shirley Temples. We had just a lovely evening, and 11 of us went to sleep on the tour bus that night. Mike was in his hotel room. 11 of us go to sleep on the tour bus that night, and a very mentally disturbed woman broke into an 18-wheeler on the other side of the parking lot. I guess the keys were left inside the 18-wheeler. She broke into it, started it up, and then drove as fast as she could into the middle of our tour bus while we were sleeping. So I was woken up by an 18-wheeler crashing into the middle of our tour bus. And I'll repeat this again. This happened 2 weeks after I got into that car accident on the highway. So in my mind, I just thought like the universe wanted me to be dead. I'm lucky. I was lucky to be here after that first accident, and then like God forbid if that like crackhead woman knew how to drive an 18-wheeler properly and knew how to shift it into gear. I mean, she probably crashed into us going, no more than 15 miles per hour, maybe 20 miles per hour, because she didn't know how to shift it into gear, and it was just kind of like cruising in neutral, like, and crashed into us. And since it's such a big truck, like it really fucked up the bus, and we all got flung out of our bunks, and like. And she actually reversed it and crashed into us a second time too while we were still on it. So like it wasn't very fast, and like there were no major injuries, but again, just like a very like weird, like the most like I've been touring for 13 years. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Like it's stuff like that just doesn't happen. So those two things happening side by side next to each other, I was like, I'm just so lucky to even be alive after these two things. Like the most bizarre things happening 2 weeks apart. But I was scared shitless, and like I feel like every day since then has just been a bonus day. It's given me a whole new appreciation for life. But yeah, that was that was some of the scariest 2 weeks of my life. I'll say that.
Yeah, man, that's a lot. Like as you said, like. To have that happen once and then 2 weeks later, I know that like the day after Boston, you had the gig and you go back and tour or whatnot. But when were you able to kind of sit down and process that, John? Because you live such like obviously maybe life is not as fast paced as it used to be, but the fact that you're still on tour, at what point were you able to, like, a couple of days after process it? Like, how did you process something like that happening? Not once, but twice.
I think the answer is, like, I couldn't process it because especially, like, that was the last time we ever toured that way on a tour bus where we were doing 4 to 5 shows a week. And that type of scheduling is just, it's fucking grueling. The traveling is a lot easier because you're sleeping on your mode of transportation and you wake up in the new city every day. So that's nice where you don't have to go through airports and security and all that type of stuff. But still, just the schedule of putting on a show, especially at this level, especially that tour 2 years ago. That was the first time where we were like, Mike wasn't really partying anymore, and like we were like really taking the operation super seriously. And it was a big adjustment for me because I mean our version of touring before that was like, all right, let's do the show, let's capture it the best we can, and then let's go get fucked up. That was this tour was the first time where Mike was like, no party. I'm not going to party. And like, if you can't get your job done, then you're not going to party either. And there was, that was very tough for me, especially because like that scheduling is just so gruesome of doing 4 to 5 shows. And then when you happen to have an off day, I'm just sitting in the hotel making edits because social media has to be so persistent.
Rampant.
And yeah, every single day. And it was just a very grueling schedule. And I was like, I used to associate tour with like nothing but fun. And now it's like, it became such like a big business where the fun just had to be a different form of fun. It couldn't be going out and getting fucked up every night and, all this. It had to be embracing what we built together and actually being present and seeing like, this is a big operation. We're lucky to be in this position. Let's not throw it away by fucking getting drunk every night. Like, let's keep our heads down. And so that's what that tour 2022, it was a big adjustment for me and like a huge growing time where it had to be more about the business, and we were capturing the shows way differently, and we had a second videographer that tour, and we were just cranking out content like consistently multiple times a day, where in the past we had never done anything like that. And then fast forward to this tour, like forget about partying. By the end of the show, like I felt like I'd just given labor, like I just given like a 13-pound baby.
That's one way of putting it.
And like I'm just like dead after every show, and like it's just so grueling. And we were having some of these shows, we were having 5-6 videographers there, and I'm leading a whole media team at this point where it's like a huge operation, like a massive operation. And again, like these are the biggest shows we have ever done by a long shot.
A lot on the table.
And like at this tour, Mike didn't have to give me a sit down and say like, let's keep our heads down and focus. Like I already knew. I was like, I'm like, I've been alongside you this entire time. I've seen it grow to this point. Like, I'm not going to let you down. I am going to deliver for you this time around. There's going to be no adjustment period. Like, I'm just going to give it my fucking all. And I would hope that if you asked him, he would say that this is the same thing, that I literally like put my head down and just did the best I could, because I did. But I'm proud of what we accomplished that last tour and even this one, as far as just the size of the shows and putting on a great show, and not just the video department, but the production department and the sound and the lights and the video, the visuals, the video wall, and the visuals that we captured as a video team. I'm just so proud of what we accomplished.
Yeah, man, and so much respect should be given and deserved, rightly deserved. John, did you? We don't have to go into specifics if you really don't want it, but did you journal much about the incidents? Did you do therapy or anything after that, or did you just find your own way of kind of like just processing it and letting it go?
Journaling's always been a form of therapy for me. I think that's been the most like consistent form. And then secondly, after that, podcasting has really helped me too. If you look at like a lot of like the recent podcasts, especially like the latter half, like Mike and I are just sitting kind of pouring our hearts out to each other. Yeah. And that's a form of therapy for us. I mean, like, I think if I didn't have the podcast, I probably would have had a therapist by now that I would sit and talk to. But in a way, like Mike's kind of been my therapist, because once a week or every other week we'd sit down and we would just talk about what I think that's why like, there's the candidness we had within our own lives. I think that's why fans really got attracted to our podcasts, because you have like some grown men that used to be like these crazy party guys. They used to drink every night, whatever. Now, like, we're just sitting down talking about our feelings,
chopping it up
and just being completely like transparent and vulnerable and just talking about what's going on. And you find out at the end of the day, like, there's a lot of people out there that are hurting for one reason or another, or going through something or overcoming some type of obstacle. And we're not like preaching or telling anyone what to do. We're just talking about what we're going through and how we're dealing with it. And I think a lot of people were able to relate to that. So selfishly though, when we were doing the podcast, it was very helpful for me to just kind of sit and talk about things that I was going through. And, hearing an outside perspective like Mike kind of talking about it as well. And then again, when the relatability, when people listen to it and hearing what other people are going through or having similar issues, just kind of having that connection with other people has really helped.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. Again, relates straight away on so many things. I spoke about it on here, but this has become mine because I'll have solo episodes. So I obviously have great guests on like yourself, but I'll have solo episodes where I literally just go through everything that's happened in my past week, just and chat to myself for a whole entire hour. And it's funny because I have to turn the mic on in my, so I hear myself as I talk, because I just wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't. So it sounds like I'm chatting to somebody, but it's just me in a room.
Yeah, I get it.
Just chatting to myself.
I get it, yeah.
And you're letting everything out, like, and sometimes I let too much out and I have to edit it out. But you're letting it out, like, and it is therapy, man. It definitely is therapy. Mm-hmm. John, just on the journaling, I just want to read you a quote.
Yeah.
So obviously you started journaling in 2015. You have a quote: "I started to see my life in front of my eyes." How would you say journaling has kind of helped you evolve? What's like maybe something that you noticed when you journaled? You're like, wow, I do that. Maybe I need to grow.
Yeah, I mean,
develop that.
when you the greatest part about journaling is that it's all written in ink. You know, like you can go back, and I've done that like multiple times. Every couple months, probably, I'll look back and read an older entry. And just to be clear, like when I was starting to journal in 2015, it wasn't to like do it for therapeutic reasons or for like spiritual reasons. I just knew that like these years were going to be the craziest of my life, and I wanted to document them, not just through video, but I wanted to actually write down what I was feeling during these times and what I was doing. And just because I didn't want to forget them, because like we were not present people at the time. Probably not until a couple of years ago. We were not present people. We were just living day to day and just like living life to the fullest and just living life as big as we could. So and you know, you talk about the drinking and the partying, like there's just no way for us to remember it all because we were just drinking and partying too much. So there was no way of really recollecting what was going on or how I was feeling. So I wanted to just like get all these stories down so I could remember them. But like I wasn't just thankfully I wasn't just writing what was happening. I was writing it from my perspective and actually like talking about what I was feeling and like what
you're thinking,
everything. And God, I was such a schmuck back then. And I read stories from back then, and I go back and I would constantly be like reading stuff from the past and from years ago, and just seeing what I was like and what my mind state was like and what was a priority to me at the time. And that's when you really start to see how you evolve, and you get to like really start to get a shape of like who you were and who you are now and who you're going to be. And you don't have to sit there and like recollect and like think about, oh, what was I thinking? What was I like back then? Like, it's just there. It's written there, you know, like it's a time capsule. So as far as like, self-discovery and growth, like that was just so fucking huge for me. And like I said, like those early stories, like I was just writing for some laughs, you know, because I just like crazy stuff was happening and I wanted to remember it. And like, yes, I think of those moments very fondly, but at the same time, I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe I was that type of person. Like I was so reckless. I was only thinking about myself. I was selfish. I was like, I wasn't doing things for the right reasons. But it's also like, it's nice to be able to like see that and see how far I've come. In a way, so
definitely, man.
Another reason why it's great is you can be easier on yourself. You know, a lot of people are so
self-compassion.
A lot of people are so wrapped up in what they want to be and who they want to become, and they don't know like who they used to be and how far they've come up until now. So it gave me a whole new appreciation for just like how far I've come and how much I've developed and evolved and adapted, and it just made me be a little easier on myself, even though I'm not where I want to be. It's just like I can give myself
you're on the right path.
I can give myself a pat on the back and say like, you're not perfect. I can show myself compassion, and it's like you're in the right direction.
Yeah, man, I love that. Something I've been again, man. So when we were in New York, when we went to the show Pier 17, the whole week, man, was something out of a movie. It was just everything. Like shout out one of my good friends, Paige. It was her that organized it, because I said to my friend Nathan, it was me, Finn, Nathan, and a girl called Paige, Finn's girlfriend. Oh, my camera's just. And it was her. She organizes and got us all to go. But the whole week, you know how you have your Instagram, and Instagram makes everything look great and whatnot. But this time reality was like 10x Instagram. And every day I was coming home fucking wrecked. It was like 12 o'clock. I've been up at 6 running around the city. Like, man, I went on some funny adventures, some funny ass adventures.
Was that your first time in New York City?
First time.
Yeah. Isn't it such a fun city?
Oh, fun. Bruh, fun's an understatement.
It's a fun city.
You can do anything.
Anything. You can do anything. Yeah.
Anything. But but when I come home, it was like 12 o'clock at night for like just the week we're there. I couldn't journal because I was like so wrecked. So I ended up doing a podcast where I try to put as much as I can. And even the podcasts like yourselves are time capsules. They become time capsules of like going back, almost like journaling. Just from journaling to maybe something more spiritual. Okie dokie. Something that I know that connects with you a lot is Dharma. What is Dharma for someone who wouldn't be familiar with Dharma, and why is it kind of special to you, Jon?
Well, Mike can probably explain this a lot better than me, but for me, Dharma is kind of like your purpose in a way. And when you talk about your purpose and like what gets you up in the day, what gets you like excited to wake up every morning, it's basically just a simple equation on finding out what you're good at and what you love to do every day. Like figure out what you love doing, whatever skill that may be, and then how you use that to help other people. And that's your purpose. So for me, I've found I have such a wide skill set and so many things that I love to do in the creative fields. And I use them to not only support Mike's career and help him be like the best, artist he can be, but then as the operation got bigger, you start to see how it's affecting so many people, where I'm not just supporting this one guy, my friend, I'm supporting this entire community of fans that are now, a part of what we do, where that's kind of my Dharma, what's like gets me out of bed every day, like if you take that away, I think like Will Smith had this quote, and he said that like the meaning of life is just being useful to people. Like if you're not useful to anybody, then why would you get up every day? Like if you're just there to serve yourself and you're useful to nobody, there's no reason to get up every day and do anything. So the sense of purpose I get from not only helping Mike, but now this amazing community of fans that are now like in the hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, I don't know, that are influenced or somehow touched by the work that we put out there, that is 100% my purpose and what gets me out of bed every day. And I think that's what Dharma is.
Love that, man. That was a great, I don't know. That was a great answer.
Thanks.
Massive, massive.
Thanks.
If you do things from the heart with honesty and good intentions and be service to others, the universe will provide. You said that in the podcast, man. That really hit home, because I'd be very similar. If you do good stuff for people and you work your ass off and really like with a focused plan, it will happen. Back to Jelly Roll, back to Macklemore, Mike, everything. Just go at it. You got it. Just my friend Matthew, one time I was doing nothing.
Can't see it. My hair's
you just got to do something. Just do something. But if you do something,
it's about leading with the right intention, though. Like you talk about, like the main part of the equation is how it is of service to other people. Like that has to, like that part has to be in there. It can't just be, I do what I love doing because I want to be rich and famous and I want people to love me and give me validation. Like that can't be the equation. The equation has to be, I want to find out what I love to do it completely authentically and work as hard as I can at it and have it be of service to other people. And if you have that part of the equation of service to other people, I guarantee if you keep going, it's gonna happen for you. I promise. If you're in it for the wrong reasons, yeah, maybe it'll happen for you, but you'll always feel like a little bit of emptiness or a void inside, because I guarantee when you get to where you wanted to be, like money wise or career wise, and you're living up in this giant house and you have all the money in the world and you have all these fans that love you and you weren't in it for the right reasons, you're just gonna feel so empty inside. I can guarantee it. And so many people will tell you that. Mike will tell you that, and I'm sure a million other artists will tell you that, or anyone that has reached a high level of success. If they're in it for the wrong reasons, no matter how big they get or how rich they get or how popular they get, they will not feel fulfilled every day.
Yeah, man, I think, and that holds weight because you've been around them people. You know what it's like to be around them people.
Yeah.
You've seen when someone is happy in their success, and I'm sure you've seen when someone is not happy within their success. So I think that holds a lot of weight for anyone listening. John, I'm going to bring things to a wrap in the next 5 minutes. Just run it.
Take your time.
Last things.
Take your time.
You're a man. Your time is valuable.
Not an issue. I got nothing but time for you.
I appreciate that, man. It means a lot. Bruh, what was it like being there for the Larry King interview? You're sitting there, again, another one of my, one quote that really holds weight. Well, a lot of things, what you said over the last couple of years, hold weight. Me and my best friend Finn. But you said something that we really stuck with. And you said, what's that? I just want to get the quote. You said how what your father was doing at one point didn't exist. What he's doing now, it didn't exist for years.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing here.
Yeah.
And that would, I didn't know when I was fucking 18 trying to figure out rap that I'd end up doing a podcast, because it wasn't within my grasp, it wasn't in my hemisphere. Mm-hmm. And just podcasting. When did you pick up when did you enter that realm? Was it when you did yours and Mike's podcast, or had you already been?
No, I've been dabbling with podcasting.
Dabbling.
When I was still living in New York around 2014, maybe.
Oh, damn, you're early bird.
Yeah, but I mean, podcasting was even starting in like 2010 or
Yeah.
2011. I think Rogan's podcast started in 2010 or something. So he was really, really early to it. But I'd say around like 2014 or so. Like it wasn't a video podcast, but one of my best friends that we were both living in New York City at the time. He's a comedian. His name is Jiggy. Um, I think it was his idea. He was like, let's like this podcasting thing seems to be a thing. It was just audio at the time. I don't know if a lot of people were doing video podcasts, but it was just audio releases, I think, at the time. And so we just started doing like a comedy podcast together weekly and put it out on SoundCloud. And, you know, it was nothing, never major. We probably had, 3, 4, 500 listeners tops. But we did it. We were very consistent with it. Probably put out 30, like 40, 50 episodes, something like that. So like we did it for a little while, and that was kind of my first introduction to it. But again, it was just like an audio release, and but again, it was a lot of fun just like getting together with my friend and doing that every week. But that, to go back to that quote that you said about my father talking about, what made him successful at the end of the day didn't exist until he was 40. I felt that way about a lot of things, especially podcasting though. I always came up, I always got this advice from successful people in the early days, like older people, and they say, stick with one thing and be really good at it. And I just like, no matter how hard I tried, I was always getting like swayed into so many different things. Like I love playing guitar. I love audio engineering. I love making beats. I love shooting music videos. I love doing documentaries. I want to do a movie. Like it always kind of went around video and music, but like every aspect of it, like literally all of it. Like with music, like I couldn't just be an audio,
All angles.
I couldn't just be an audio engineer. I love to produce as well because I play instruments and I love learning instruments and playing piano and guitar, and then like on the video side of things, like I don't want to just do music videos. Like I like to shoot documentaries, or I like to, so like I explored both avenues. And yes, if I stuck with one thing, I probably could have been like the best at that one thing because all of my energy would go into that one thing. But I ended up getting like pretty good at like 7 different things because I just
which is fucking amazing, John.
which is yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the best at any of those things, but like time has went on, and I have 15 years experience or more in like these like 7 or 8 things where like I have enough knowledge where I can be considered like pretty good at that thing. So then I didn't know where those things were going to lead. I was just following my ambition because I loved doing all these different things. They just made me happy. So then you fast forward to, I mean, probably when we started the YNK podcast, 2019, we wanted to release an audio and video release of a podcast. And podcasting was, yes, like pretty far along at that point, but that's when we started really doing it. And you have a guy like me that's been learning video, every aspect of video and every aspect of audio for like, at that point, I've been doing it for, like 9, 10, well, no, like more than that, like probably 12 years
Wow.
at least of each thing, video and audio. Like I was over 10 years experience in each thing, where it's like, instead of hiring a team of 3 or 4 guys to do all this stuff to put on a podcast production, I can literally like, I can run the video, I can run the audio, and I can just hop in there and be a fucking co-host while I'm doing all those things as well. Like I'm not saying no one can do that, but it's just very rare at the level we were doing it at. It's just very rare to have someone who has all those skill sets and that skill stacking to like be able to pull something like that off, and then go out and like edit the entire thing completely.
At a high level too, because I'm sure people do that, but at a high level.
Yeah, just
over and over again,
yeah,
without mistakes, at a high level.
Yeah. Like we were, obviously like Mike has he has like expectations of like wanting things to be a certain way, and like I always want to meet his expectations. So yes, like he made sure that it was at a high level, everything we do. But I mean, just to give myself like a little pat on the shoulder, like I'm just glad I followed my ambitions and didn't just stick with just one thing and did all those things, because I didn't know it was going to lead to a podcast. Like I didn't know I was going to be like a great podcast producer because I had all these skills. I just did those skills because they made me happy and I enjoyed doing them. And then when the podcast came along, like that, to me, that was like the universe being like, you stuck with all these things that you love. Here you go. Like it just like, I didn't know it was gonna. I
love that, man.
I didn't
fucking love that.
I didn't know when it was gonna come. I didn't know where it was gonna come from. But like it just kind of dropped in my lap, and it's like, you're gonna be a great podcast producer because you stuck with what you love for all these years, for 10 years. It was literally over 10 years of like just doing these things for the sake of, and yeah, I saw success in doing those things from a career standpoint individually, but to put all of those skills together into one thing, like I didn't know that would even exist. But that's like, and I forget who, but someone's been calling it like skill stacking, and it's like now it's so important to like. It doesn't even matter if they don't make sense. Like if you like to if you like to cook and you love to like play keyboard, like go do those two things. You never know. Like one day maybe you'll be a chef that fucking plays the keyboard while you cook, and you'll be famous for. Like, who knows? Like you literally have no idea. Just like even if like the things you love to do make no sense together, just do them because like you don't know where it's gonna lead. And not to talk your ear off, but like besides the podcast, like another thing that kind of the universe kind of served up and fell into our laps was this company we created called Grouped, which is what the Only Steve's platform is on.
Shout out Grouped. Shout out Only Steve's. A lovely segue, I might say, John. A lovely segue.
Lovely segue. But again, that was another thing where, again, all the credit to Mike. He wanted to start this subscription service for our fan base because, like, as an independent artist, it's tough out there. You have to have multiple streams of income to really like make it as an independent artist. You can't just rely on the music. And if you've seen Mike, like he has so many different avenues of his empire. He has his merchandise, Stevenson Ranch, Chug Bud, and then all of the music stuff and touring. And then we started doing this subscription service where it was such a win-win for the fans and for us, where we could create this like exclusive experience where like we give them just like a more inside look at the things we're doing. We can give them more podcasts. Like we can let them in on the music making process and show like all like these demos that never came out. And we could use like our fans and start this narrative of like showing like how Mike does things the way he does it, and like let them in on the music making process. And it was just such a win-win, and we did that for so many years. And unfortunately the company we started Only Steve's with, like it didn't work out with, and we had to part ways. So like we, Mike and I like got together with a few other people, and we decided like let's create our own platform. And again, like at that time Mike was one of the only artists that had a successful subscription service as a musician. Like musicians weren't doing that. Even after years of us doing it, when we started Grouped, like there weren't any like real musicians, like independent musicians that were doing the subscription platform or doing it successfully.
Setting the trend, building the infrastructure. John, it's almost too like it was like the natural evolution, because what you used to do after the barriers is essentially still Only Steve's. That's essentially that, like it's almost like they're very different, but they're kind of the same thing almost at the same time. Because when you used to like chill after and like be one with the fans, it's the same crack with Only Steve's now. When you go over, it's a crack. Crack is just an Irish term too.
Yeah, no, it's the crack. It's
crack. The same crack. It's the same crack as over at Only Steve's. The way that like fans can decide, it's like that camaraderie. And when we were at the show, man, and the reason I keep references it wasn't us going to see Mike. It was us having a party with Mike. And that's the sense of that was a sense in the crowd that we were with you guys and not just looking at you guys.
Wow.
And man, I've been to enough gigs to know when people are fucking, you're just staring at them and they're the star and you're down here. But that's the environment you've built. And man, just all the like the Steves around, like it was just such a wholesome. And I want to tell you too, just because it really means a lot. One of the best moments I've ever felt was running over Tower Bridge in the marathon that I didn't train for. But guys, I'll tell that story another time. And I ran over Tower Bridge and felt the elation of like life. It was truly a euphoric moment. The only other time I ever felt that was at the Mike gig when I think it was Woosah came on, and just and that's what I was saying. Just sometimes I don't remember the visuals too well, but the feeling. And man, it was incredible feel. Man, there's a phenomenal feel.
It's the way you phrase that, man, just makes me it puts a smile on my face, man. Just like saying you're not going there to see him, you're going there to have a party with him. It's like that's like so comforting to hear from you, because like that's always been what we've wanted to cultivate with what we do, and like to hear you say it just really means a lot, and that's amazing.
Oh man, de nada, as the Spanish to say it, de nada
means a lot.
John, I couldn't have had you on. I couldn't have brought you on here today. Where are we? Wednesday the 10th. Is it the 10th? Oh, no, it's Wednesday the 11th of 2024. It's great to have you here. Without mentioning the films and what's next with the films. Primrose 2018, I do believe, comes out. what's next with the films? For anyone who doesn't know, you're an incredible film writer. You have the comedic bone in you. What's next in terms of the film world?
Oh, thanks, man. Well, just for everyone listening, just to put it in context, like I shot my first film in 2018, and I crowdfunded it, so I raised about $30,000 just through crowdfunding and private funding and stuff, in my own money and stuff like that. Because I just, it was a time in my life where things were very quiet in the Mike world. He was kind of going from Mike Stud to Mike, and he was like reforming his sound and recreating his identity in a way. And we weren't touring very much. The podcast didn't exist yet, so I didn't really have much. I was waking up with not much sense of purpose because things were just very quiet, and we were living in LA. And I immediately it was like 2017, and I was like, I'm just going to write a movie. Like I went to school to write film and to write films and to make movies, and like I'm still like feeling fulfilled by what I do, but times are very quiet right now, and like I have an opportunity to actually like accomplish something because I have the time to do it. So I sat and I with zero experience of writing films, like yes, I went to school for it, but until you do it, you have no experience.
Until you do it.
So I'm writing this movie, and like I didn't put too much pressure on it. I did it in a few months, and then I spent another few months, creating a crowdfunding and raising money for it, and then I spent another few months putting the production together. And I'd say like within the time I started the script to when I started like shooting the movie, it was only about like 6 months. So it sounds like a lot of time,
Wow.
but it really wasn't a lot of time to write the movie, raise the money, produce it out, and like hire
6 months goes like that.
Yeah,
6 months goes like that.
hire everyone, and then go off and shoot it. And then we shot it in 12 days, I believe, which is not a lot of days. And
Jeez, that's short for a movie, man. 12 days.
12 days. I mean, with no money, 12 days and no money, it's hard. And we had to like pull a lot of favors, and we were shooting in Boston. We're shooting in my parents' basement, and like we caught a lot of lucky breaks of like shooting locations and having a lot of people help us out that I'm extremely grateful for to this day. But anyways, like that was one of the greatest learning experiences of just like undertaking one of the biggest pieces of work I could ever take on. Like it's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And to this day, I watch the movie and it kind of makes me want to vomit a little because I hate it so much. but I mean, I hate it in the sense that I'm proud. I have a sense of pride of what I accomplished and what my whole team was able to accomplish. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't like my project; it was a team's project. Like I assembled a very large team of a production team and actors that were just like all so amazing and worked well together that I couldn't have asked for a better casting crew of like.
And the memories you made.
Yeah, but just like I mean, it was such like a large amount of people. I was such like an amateur. Instead of having a 4-person cast, I had like a 15-person cast, and just like the amount of people that came out and like worked for like little to no money to just make this movie, and like they didn't know me from a hole in the wall, and we're all like kind of living together and under one roof, in Boston for 12 days, and just all coming together and making this. It was just so like gratifying, and it felt so good to accomplish it. So in that sense, like I feel such a deep sense of pride and gratitude for what we accomplished. But from like an art standpoint and creative standpoint, I watch it and I'm like, oh God.
I definitely think for anyone who wants to watch the movie, you got to take it for what it is.
Yeah,
I think it's that type of movie.
Yeah,
like, I think
like under the circumstances, I'm so proud, and like I don't think there's another human being on the planet that could make a movie to like that quality for $30,000. Like I just like I pulled so many strings and had so many great people.
Geppetto, shout out Geppetto.
I just found so many great people to help me make this thing, and like you watch it and you're like, oh, I can't believe that's a $30,000 movie. Like in that sense, I'm very proud of it. And I rewatched it again recently. I mustered up the courage to my parents. My parents are the biggest supporters in the entire world. They're my biggest fans. So like they made me sit down and watch it about a month ago, and I'm giving myself a little more credit now because I watched it and I'm like, okay, it didn't make me want to vomit as much as I used to, but I learned so much from it, and it's crazy to think that was, oh God, like 6 years ago.
6 years ago, man.
Yeah, it's 6 years ago.
Wow.
And I was lucky to make it at that time because times were very quiet, and then after that movie was made, the Mike world just took off. Like I hadn't
elevated to
I went from
level.
having nothing to do to having too much to do, because I mean, if you follow the story along, Mike doesn't have a lot of people in his corner because he can't, there's not a lot of people he trusts, so many people have let us down over the years or have done horrible things over the years where he just has such a small team because there's very few people he can trust, and I'm so grateful to be one of those people. But with that, there comes a lot of hats that I have to wear, and I'm grateful for that too. Like I'm so grateful I get to work in this industry and have so much to do and make a career of it and be of service to people. But with that being said, like I had to put the movie thing down for a while. I mean, look at this 6 years because things are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But I'm very excited for Mike's talking about retiring and whenever that may be, and it doesn't matter to me, but whenever it may be, if it's 2 years from now, 3 years from now, whatever, I have the whole rest of my life to focus on films and movies, and I've still been dabbling on a new script, and the past 2 years I've been writing scripts, and one I almost finished and kind of put to the side because I just wasn't really in it anymore, but it still exists, it's still there. And then I started a new one that I'm actually very passionate about that I want to hopefully shoot in the next couple years. But I didn't put the movie thing down, like I know that there's no rush to do it because I have my whole life to do it. And I know
sharpening the pen too, man. As you said, it's a craft. That was your first movie. Exactly. Sharpening the pen. These things take time.
And one thing you learn as a writer is that, man, like until you understand yourself, you're not going to be able to write stories about other people. Like there's no way.
Pop, 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 pop. Bears, man.
I love writing. Like I whether it be journaling or whatever, or scripts, movie screenplays. You could tell from my first movie, like there were some good nuggets in there, but I didn't know who I was yet. And I have come such a long way since 2018, and I just so much more self-discovery that I've been through and so much more understanding of myself where I can now sit down and like I can actually write about moments that I have felt before. And even though they're about fictional characters, like I can write moments about loss, or I can write moments about like having an identity crisis and not knowing, like self-discovery and finding out who you are. Like I can actually write those characters now because I've been through it, not to say that I've been through everything. Like there's probably people that have been through 10 times more shit than me, but like I have been through it.
You felt them feelings, them emotions.
Yes.
You have them memories.
Yeah.
For you to allow.
And when I
to
talk
flow.
about like, the early days of not being present, like up until a few years ago, like I'm so far behind on experiencing feelings and just like really like reflecting on like certain things in my life and just going through the emotions. I didn't have to for so many years because we just all had so many distractions of like, oh, well, let's go to this party, let's go on this tour, like let's do this, let's go to this, and like we never just sat and like until we started podcasting, we never just like sat and like went through these feelings and processed it all. And again with Mike's music, he'll tell you the exact same thing. Like now that he can do that through his music, it's become so much better. His music's become so much better because he's processed all those feelings, and now it just flows through him. He doesn't have to like sit down and actually think about what to write about. It just flows right through. And that's true for any art, not just music. And I'm seeing it through writing as well, where I can get in touch and tap into these emotions and create something fictional that I actually have been through, and it's real. And I know people will resonate with it because it's real.
Can tell. I think people can tell when
subconscious.
You can tell like when
subconsciously
something
or consciously they can tell 100%.
It's forged or if it's authentic. Just something you said there. Two things there, John. One was on about growing as a person, being able to feel that before you can even write about it or put it into like creativity. Mac, just to bring it back to Mac, shout out Mr. Malcolm Robert here on. Mac has a great line. I think it's a Breakfast Club interview 2015. I'm good with dates. I like timestamping things. But I think it's around the Good AM 2015 period when he was like in a real good chapter of his life. And he spoke about like not being afraid to be human and not being afraid to grow as a person for the music to grow. Because you have to grow as a person for your art to grow. Because again, it might be cliche, but the art is a reflection of you. It's a reflection. You can try your best with your imagination, but the best art comes from when you've felt them emotions or you've been very close to them emotions, them on a good stand, adventures, crazy, maybe partying, but also them low moments where you do lose someone or you're in a car crash or something like that. That's undeniable. You can just feel it. It's very hard feeling to forge, I would say, John.
Yeah, and let's bring this full circle real quick because I see the parallels because I love Motley Crue and I love Mike, so let's bring it full circle real quick.
Do it, John. Do it.
In 1989, I think, Motley Crue came out with their biggest album of all time, Dr. Feelgood, And it was their biggest album of all time, coincidentally, when they all became sober and they all decided to stop doing heroin and stop being drug addicts. I think they were all completely sober at that point. And sure enough, they started pumping out their greatest work of all time, and it was their biggest album of all time. And then you look at Mike. You look at Mike probably starting around 2021, 2022, 2-3 years ago. He stopped partying pretty much altogether. He almost stopped drinking altogether, and he had the most clarity he's ever had in his entire life, and he started putting in the work, and sure enough, he's the biggest he's ever been. He's putting out the best music and doing the best tours of his entire life. So like this is not a coincidence. Like this is not a coincidence. Like if you tap in spiritually, and like spirituality can mean whatever you want it to mean. It doesn't have to mean religion. It can mean, it just means about self-discovery and finding out who you are and leading with the right intentions. But you have to do the work. And I wasn't a believer at first. I'd see Mike taking walks on beaches and he's saying this is work. I'm like, walking on it, I'm like, you son of a bitch. Like walking on a
What you playing at here, Mike? What you playing at?
Walking on a Malibu beach isn't work, you bastard. But then like dude, he's always been years ahead of me. But sure enough, now every day you see me at the park down the street walking barefoot in the grass and just soaking in the sun for at least 20 minutes a day. And I can't even go throughout my day without doing that, because like, I mean, grounding, that's a whole nother, and like actually getting hit with the sun and walking barefoot, that's a whole different story. But like, there are so many things we can do to serve ourselves and to like make ourselves clear-minded. And like, yes, that's like getting away from the alcohol and the substances and tapping into nature. Like all of that is, if you're a creator and you want to be your best self and have the clearest mind, like that all is work. That's all work. And like, that's all like very important things that are self-serving to do. And I'm a believer in it 100%. So kudos to Mike. He was on it before, walking on the beach in Malibu.
That's such a funny scene. That's such a funny scene.
Yeah.
You come home and like, Mike, I need to have a word with you.
He's right. He's always right. That motherfucker's always right. It's annoying.
Something I just wanted to bring up there real quick is did you have a sense of achievement, John, when you're obviously in Nashville at the moment? When what was that feeling like when you purchased a house? Because I don't know what it's like in America, but like to buy a house in Ireland is a huge thing right now. Because for context, Europe is incredible. First of all, my boy Finn said, make sure you sell Europe to John so they all come over. But man, we lived in Barcelona for a couple of years. We used to have the highs playing, man. Like the podcast one time, like we found ourselves in a very beautiful position where we were living in Barcelona. We'd be playing highs out the speaker in the morning, like just like really like kind of dream stuff. But where I was going, 1 second, I'll pull this up now. I don't want to lose my train of thought. Just about buying a house. Just I wanted to put that in just because we were living in Barcelona and the house and stuff. To buy a house right now, Ireland is one of the most expensive places. Sorry, it is the most expensive place to live in Europe.
Damn.
And that's crazy. Like, so when if anyone buys a house nowadays, like my age or older or whatever, that's a massive thing, because it's not a normal thing to do anymore in Ireland. Just like buy a house, a lot of people just can't afford it. What was that feeling like the moment you got the keys to your own house?
Well, to be fair,
that must have been.
To be fair, like I was 34, so I'm not gonna like. I should,
man, still, I'm telling you, like I know a lot of 34-year-olds that ain't buying a house.
I shouldn't deserve. Like, I don't deserve
it.
a medal for getting a house at 34. But at the same time, it's like I didn't really become financially conscious until probably around COVID, like 2020 or something like that. And like right around COVID, when the stock market crashed here in America, I literally, like, whatever savings I had, I dumped it into the stock market, like the second the stock market crashed, because I'm like, there's no way the economy is going to collapse forever. So, that was a good move, I think, on my part. But at the same time, like, I'm not going to sit here and brag that I got a house at the age of 34, even though it is an amazing thing. I think the real accomplishment is that up until that point, I'd lived with Mike and a bunch of other guys for 7 years, and just finding my own individuality of like going off and living in a house on my own in a new city. Yeah. Because like, I mean, up until then, like I said, we were institutionalized and we did everything together for 7 years. We like literally everything we did together, and there wasn't much identity for myself within that, because, and I'm not sitting here and going to complain about it, but like we were all part of one brand and one image,
one unit,
yeah. Exactly. And that was the camaraderie of that was beautiful, and like I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. And after that, when I moved here to Nashville and I'm away from everything that I knew, I moved away from. And yes, we still work together, but I was sitting in a house by myself, and I had to kind of rediscover who I was. And I'm still doing that to this day, 2 years later. And it's been an incredible, another nugget from Mike. It's like you can't understand yourself unless you spend time with yourself. And I had not really spent the time with myself when I was living with all of them. And now that I'm kind of forced to and thrown into this environment, and man, it's been such like a valuable learning experience of going through all these trials and tribulations of just learning who I am. And yes, I have amazing people in my life here, but it's, being away from that institution of living under the same roof with everyone and kind of living and finding out who I am. It's been that's been like the really gratifying thing of not just like the financial part about buying a home, but like being here and figuring myself out has been like the real joy of it all.
I think that takes a lot of, like, to you that might seems like something normal you would just like say, but I think that takes a lot of courage to be open and say that you didn't know who you were, and that you're still trying to find. It's one thing to say that, like, I didn't know who I was, but then be open to say and admit I'm still trying to find who I am.
Well, I knew who I was in that world. In that world, I knew I was Jon Kilmer, the filmer. I know who I was in that world. But then you take me out of that world, and it's like, I shouldn't wrap my identity in what I do and in my job and my career. Even though I made it my life, I shouldn't wrap my identity in that. And when I separated myself from that, and like, yes, I was still working in that world, but I was like physically separated from it. I had to figure out who I was, and I'm still figuring out who I am. And it's scary, man. It's fucking, it's hard. Some days it's hard. Some days,
I know.
Some days, like, I'm just like, I'm out, walking on the grass in the sun, listening to Creed and just thinking like, who am I? with arms wide open. I do it with arms wide open.
Oh, that is a brilliant sight. The neighbor's like, oh, there he goes again.
Just having a moment. He's on
that hippie stuff again. So
yeah.
John, I'm going to bring things to a close, my man. Something I do in this podcast is I love to remind people how important their work is and how important they are as a person. And I think, even though you're very aware of this, I have to say, John, while you may have got certain gifts in life, it's one thing to receive a gift, but if you don't take that gift with whole gratitude and run with it to the mountaintop, then it doesn't mean nothing. And I think you should credit yourself so much, from your skill set to how you treat people, to even, like, man, when I was looking up how many podcasts you've done so many podcasts, and you're just so open to connecting with people. And it's so admirable, man, that even at this level of success that you guys are, you've remained so grounded. You've remained so grounded and humble. And just, massive flowers, man, for becoming the person you are and still there becoming. And just massive daps. So
thank you, man. That's so nice to hear. Those are such nice words. So I appreciate you for that, and thank you for having me on, man. Like, I'm not doing anyone a favor by coming on their podcast. I'm the lucky one that anyone even gives a shit enough to like have me come on and listen to my rambling. So I appreciate it.
Denada, man, denada. As this is the One Step at a Time podcast, I usually like to ask my guests this last question. John, if you could give anyone one piece of advice to accomplish a dream, or to even just get on the right path to accomplish a dream, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, we talked about this earlier, but I'd just say find out what you love to do, lead with good intentions, find out how you can make that of service to other people, and just rinse and repeat, my friend. And as long as you're leading with good intention and you're doing what you love and you treat people well and you're kind to yourself, you're going to reach the highest highs you've ever seen in your entire life.
Incredible. Guys, this has been another episode of One Step at a Time with your host, the Ocean Flight 111, heading straight to Club Centre with Sarah Delays. John, do not have a good day. Have a great day.
Thanks, brother.